Welcome to Franchise Killer, podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. Anyway, I am the host, Reese. You are...
David.
You are...
Irina.
And you are...
I'm Noah.
And way off in a distant land, we
AJ.
have AJ. Today we're talking about Blade Runner. This is a heavy hitter. Yeah, from 1982. Oh, wait.
Dang.
What was that?
I watched Swing Blade.
Oh, no.
Going from that intro,
a little bit different.
Kind of lined up.
Yeah, so you'll be over there muttering to yourself like Billy Bob Thornton in that movie while we talk about this one. So hopefully it'll still work out. Anyway, this movie was directed by the legendary Ridley Scott, who also directed Legend, Alien, Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Thelma and Louise, Gladiator, Black Hawk Down, American Gangster, The Martian, and many, many, many others. He has done quite a bit. One of my favorite directors, personally. I don't know about you guys. The film
Way
stars...
to throw that in there.
Yeah, the film stars... the film stars Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, and Edward James Olmos. It was written by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, and it's based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick.
What a name.
Yeah, it's a novel from 1968, I believe.
And why do you think they didn't call the movie that?
Yeah.
Because it's actually
totally
pretty different. But
they are different, but I did read that the author was pleased with the script to Blade Runner and thought it did capture a lot of the similarities.
yeah, in the end, and he actually died a few months right before it released. But he actually saw a screening of it.
Yeah. Anyway, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, guys, had you all seen this movie before this episode?
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
You had, David?
You made me watch it.
I thought I made you watch the new one.
You did, and then right afterward, you're like, hey, I know it's 1 a.m, but let's watch the original Blade Runner.
Oh, wow. I do not remember showing you the first one.
I did end up falling asleep halfway through because I legitimately was tired.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. What'd you think?
I had a positive experience the first half of the movie, but then I fell asleep, so no second half.
Irina.
For me, I know I had seen this a while back because this is one of our mom's favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, since then I've probably seen it maybe 5 or 6 times.
I feel like that's a common refrain on this podcast.
Yeah,
it's one of our mom's favorites. We just saw it through our mom.
With us.
Well, one of our mom's favorites. I watched it with you in the theaters, Reese.
Without
Pretty
Noah.
much.
Noah wasn't there.
I'm never there.
Noah, you're a bit different, though.
Yeah. Well, I remember it being on and seeing bits and pieces of it, but I had virtually forgotten everything, like most movies we watch.
You just saw flashes of it, probably from when you were really young.
Flashes of, yeah.
He saw the trailer. That's basically the same
Weird, techno-punk hair, some odd howling, and,
yeah.
you know,
There
just
was
flashes.
howling.
weird flashes every now and again.
It is a movie that our mom likes, but I think she didn't watch it as much as she talked about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't single out a time where I remember her actually sitting us down to watch Blade Runner. I more just...
I think it was, there are a lot of memories of movies she's shared where they all kind of, the experience blends into kind of the same experience where she happens upon it and she says, oh, this is a great movie. I'm putting it on, you know?
Yeah.
So I can't specifically remember the exact memory of watching it for the first time, but I know it was because she showed it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reason why I don't quite remember it as well is because this was back when I was much younger, and I saw all of these movies as old-time movies, and they weren't interesting to me because, like, oh man, that's all dated.
I know that
whatever.
feeling.
And after watching it again, now I look back at myself, and I really want to admonish that little boy.
Yeah.
He was so wrong about the world.
That's really weird.
How about you, AJ?
It's myself.
Yeah, so I'll echo Noah's sentiment there with, I'm pretty sure actually whenever I saw it as a younger person, I probably saw the theatrical version, which, just for sake of clarity, I think most of us now are talking about the final cut.
Yes, we're all watching the final cut. Yeah,
Right.
Thanks for calling that out.
So, because there are literally 7 different edits of this film officially.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think part of the voiceover kind of threw me off as a younger kid who couldn't really track with stuff, maybe slower paced and older looking. So I haven't seen this a whole lot, but I definitely have a recent viewing under my belt.
Man, it seems like I'm the worst person because I show everyone Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, and we had this discussions like, should I watch this, or how much is this spoiling of the original? Yeah. But we eventually watched it when it came out on Blu-ray. Yeah,
like in my head, I had thought that you could watch Blade Runner 2049 without the first one, but when watching the first one, and again, there's a lot of just strands from the first movie that carry on in an interesting way in the second one. Like, you can technically watch the second one without the first, but it loses a lot of the weight, I feel like. So,
and then for whatever it's worth, I did read Androids Dream of Electric Sheep recently as well for this. So,
oh, nice.
Have a little bit of comparison.
You'll be our only book person then.
Andrew read the book. Andrew read the book.
All right, are y'all ready to get into the story?
Ready.
Yes.
In 2019 Los Angeles, former policeman Rick Deckard is detained by Officer Gaff and brought to his former supervisor, Bryant. Deckard, whose job as a Blade Runner was to track down bioengineered humanoids known as replicants and retire them, is informed that 4 replicants are on Earth illegally. Deckard begins to leave, but Bryant ambiguously threatens him and Deckard stays. The two watch a video of a Blade Runner named Holden administering the Voight-Kampff test, which is designed to distinguish replicants from humans based on their emotional response to questions. The test subject, Leon, shoots Holden on the second question. Bryant wants Deckard to retire Leon and the other 3 Nexus 6 replicants: Roy, Batty, Zora, and Pris.
I think this is one of those films where I wish I could have seen it released in the theaters, just to get that experience.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Because now I've seen a whole bunch of films where they've pushed the bar as far as computer graphics go, and this is still amazing now, but that means that it would have been tripled if I was watching it for the first time back in the 80s.
Yeah, and this movie's almost 40 years old, and it still looks incredible.
And you also have to keep in mind that during that time, there was also nothing really like this, aside from, Star Wars and such. Yeah. But I mean, as far as just those huge kind of otherworldly spectacles, it probably was kind of like a Avatar of its time as far as stuff
definitely.
Like that.
It was a benchmark.
Where the Star Wars aesthetic is a little more happy, adventurous, this one is bleak, and it takes place in Los Angeles, as it says at the beginning. So just kind of this idea for all its viewers that this is what the future could potentially look like. While intriguing, it's dark.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it's funny how high hopes and low hopes they had for society.
Yeah, we'll advance, but not everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And way different from how it actually is.
Also, the score by Vangelis is amazing, and it's one of the most kind of unconventional scores. And I have to imagine, especially for that time, where you don't really... There is a theme. There's a central theme, but it's mostly just a lot of different ethnical influences. It's kind of like a melting pot of a score with this kind of synthy background and just big... I don't know. I can't even describe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about it, because normally whenever I hear movies from 80s and kind of the music they normally go to is very synthy, and I don't normally enjoy that kind of music, but with this one it was really intriguing.
What, Neverending Story?
I wasn't there are aspects of it that are really good.
Well,
and
it's
then
funny 'cause
there's part of it that's really dated.
Yeah, Vangelis did the soundtrack for Chariots of Fire, which I remembered the theme to more than I actually remember the plot of that movie.
Oh, yeah. That theme is iconic.
This soundtrack in particular was really popular, and people were looking for it, and it was promised to be released to the public, and there were actually tons of bootleg copies of this soundtrack because it was such high demand. and they actually never released it. Well, they did, but like after 10 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there's like a cult following, so to speak, of the soundtrack specifically for a while.
Anyway, so we're at the test, the Voight-Kampff test. That's pretty much the opening to this movie after we get a look at Los Angeles in 2019. So that we have our interaction between Holden and
Tyrell. Leon.
Yeah, Leon. But yeah, I just from reading the text, I didn't realize it was after only the second question that he realized that he was compromised as a replicant. And then later on you learn that it's 10 to 20 generally.
Yeah.
So
Leon's a little simple.
Just a little bit.
I think it also is supposed to establish the infallibility, so to speak, of the VK test in eking out these androids, or excuse me, replicants in the movie.
Yeah. Cool test though. It's another example of showing how this world is different from ours, and now we have this test that is able to just rat out replicants.
It's like an empathy test, but the ironic thing is that those delivering the empathy test come across as very callous and heartless and not really empathetic. So it seems like those performing the test almost seem more robotic in nature than those being tested.
And that's one of the I can't think of words today because
James
I'm
messages.
Dumb. But yeah, that's one of the messages of this movie throughout the thing is that, the replicants are almost more human than the humans.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be human? Which we're going to be like... that's like...
Every time that term comes up, I always want to say it like you just did. What does it mean?
Yeah, and that's because we're just going to be saying that over and over again for these. I just realized that for the 3 movies that I decided to talk about. Because that's...
I think, therefore I am.
But what does it mean, Reese? Can you tell me?
Can you write this
Please
down?
explain.
I want to know.
After class, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Did they consent to take the test?
Huh? I'm sorry?
Did they consent to take the test, though?
Oh.
Yeah.
We never need consent.
I do not consent.
So yeah, I like the test scene, although I don't... It's some powerful pistol. Just like blows the guy through the wall.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Through the styrofoam wall, it seemed.
Yeah.
Well, it is
cardboard wall.
It is 2019, so
powerful guns.
Yeah.
We are introduced to Deckard, played by Harrison Ford.
Woo!
I don't know if I was sold on him right off the bat. It's kind of, for him, it's a more one-note, or at least at first, it seems like a one-note performance where he's just kind of like mumbling his lines, but he totally grows on me. It's like, I see what he's doing by the end of it.
And it's interesting, because by the end of it, it kind of turns you around from, like you said, it was kind of flat in the beginning. Harrison Ford specifically took this role after coming off of like Raiders or something like that the year before, where he wanted to actually go into something more, with more depth of thought and things than just kind of a action-y flick.
Whew.
Yeah,
he picked right.
Yeah, I believe it was Raiders and Empire Strikes Back that he was just coming off of.
Yeah, so he probably read this script and was immediately sold, I would imagine, if that's what he was trying to do.
He was probably open to this kind of topic.
Yeah, he was wanting to do something a little edgier because he had done 2 big blockbustery kind of family-oriented movies.
I do agree that his performance or his character in this is kind of one note. Maybe you can argue that it's just more subtle compared to what you've seen him in before. But at the same time, I think the purpose to him being one note is that his character seems like more of a vehicle to explore the story than actually it being about him specifically.
Yeah. Another thing I thought was really interesting in how they chose to portray the main character is that in every single situation in which there's action, he's always on the receiving end of getting punched in the throat, strangled, or whatever. He's not the one that's like kicking ass. It's him getting...
Even though he's called a one-man slaughterhouse.
Yeah, but he's the one that's mostly getting destroyed and just barely manages to scrape by each time. And it's kind of neat to see a protagonist that's not this invincible juggernaut of a character.
It's kind of similar to Mad Max in a way, where it's like Mad Max never technically seems like he's on top of everything. Especially in Fury Road, he's just constantly being kind of...
Yeah.
In these situations where he's just getting...
He's just kind of the victim.
Yeah.
And kind of being pulled through all the motions, and he's like, okay, guess I'll try and survive this now.
Like a cockroach, he just keeps coming back.
Yeah, Irene and I talked about this a lot when we were going on a walk after the movie, and the differences between his performance and Ryan Gosling, which we won't talk about too much on this one. We'll come back to it on the next movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
you're gonna have to hold your tongue.
The main sort of thing is though that it focuses on Blade Runners, believe it or not, and both characters have this subdued personality. I will say that, and the way they're written is very different than a main protagonist that way. But yeah, I agree with Arena. It seems to be more about the replicant, quote unquote, villains than it is about the actual Blade Runner.
But I have to say that watching the movie, there is a whole lot of nuance to Harrison Ford's character in that you can tell with each situation that he's having to face off against the replicants, you can tell that he sees them as more than just a machine or robot, but he has to put them down anyways, and he's always kind of beating himself up about it afterwards. It doesn't focus on it, but you can tell that.
Yeah, he's very hesitant in those situations.
It's pretty mild, but I also think that he is a very, very good actor. It's just that this is the way they wanted it to be portrayed. That's all.
Well, it sets the tone for this dystopian setting. Even though you've got all these bright lights outside and the neon energy and everything like that, the flat nature of it, the subdued nature of it, just kind of sets the tone.
And this movie sure does, I don't even know what kind of spell Ridley Scott is casting, but it lulls you into this kind of drug-like stupor throughout the entire...
Right?
It is hypnotic.
Oh, yeah.
I love the feeling of watching this movie. It's unreal.
I was telling Irina, too, that when I was watching this time with you, I started drifting a little bit just because it lulls you, and I was a little tired. But every time it does... There's something
different.
Well, this
is a theme with you in this movie. You seem to fall asleep.
I didn't fall asleep though. I was being lulled, and I kind of would close my eyes, and then something would happen, and it was very captivating. I think the plot on this movie is very, very well developed, and the way they have the villains in this, I don't know, it's very, very entertaining. Mm-hmm. So it's just anytime it would lull me, it would pull me back in at the same time.
It's very, very entertaining, but I almost fell asleep.
Well, it's basically imagine Ghost in the Shell. But it actually had a good, really engaging plot.
I'm going to leave you in your silence there and move on.
I mean, Ghost in the Shell does have a good plot. But
I like Ghost in the Shell's plot.
They just didn't develop it as much as Blade Runner.
But this one is better.
Here's the difference, and this is what I pointed out in Ghost in the Shell, in my opinion. It's because he's actually doing police detective work, and he's tracking the clues and tracking his prey.
Yeah, it's much more of a noir than Ghost in the Shell was,
which is
uncovering clues.
Way to go.
Yeah,
for this kind
of
movie.
They also let you uncover the details in a way, whereas in Ghost in the Shell, you're kind of just whoa, that's pretty. Well, that's pretty.
There is light detective work in Ghost in the Shell. It's more of a mission versus...
Exactly, yeah.
But they are
it's
tracing...
not as mentally engaging. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, we also get the scene with the police chief and Deckard, and he's just informed him that 4 skin jobs are on the loose, or 6 skin jobs are on the loose. 2 of them are...
I think it was 4.
Yeah, it was 4.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he said 2 died, and we get that whole scene where Deckard's
take him down or else.
Every time I keep getting out, they keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, and we also learned that the replicants only have a 4-year lifespan, which is put into place after replicants who used to live longer would become way more autonomous, I guess.
Yeah, they would start to rebel.
Develop further emotions, and they'd start to rebel and actually kill humans. So that was a more recent development.
Like
so that's a bad thing.
Call these new models the Nexus 6 model. Yeah. And Bryant sends Deckard out, at least in the book, to Tyrell Corp that designs these replicants to basically reaffirm that the void comp test still is accurate in determining human from replicant. So
yeah, Bryant has Deckard meet with the CEO of the company that creates the replicants, Eldon Tyrell, so he can administer the test on a Nexus 6 to see if it works. Tyrell expresses his interest in seeing the test fail first and asks him to administer it on his assistant, Rachel. After a much longer standard test, Deckard concludes that Rachel is a replicant who believes she is human. Tyrell explains that she is an experiment who has been given false memories to provide an emotional cushion.
So I have something to say about this scene.
Okay.
I think every time it would pop up when I would watch it, I felt like there was something going on here, like under the surface that I wasn't picking up on. And I finally nailed down what it was. And it's the way the whole place is set up, where at first I was thinking about this room as being, you know what, it's kind of Roman, almost. Mm-hmm. There's something kind of Greek or Roman about it, the setup, and you see like the figures of the eagles, the Aquila or the Aquila, however you would pronounce it.
Yeah.
And looking into that, the symbology there, that this is the creator, the Tyrell Corporation. He, in effect, is kind of like Zeus. And the
God
first
status
animal you see is an owl, and then Rachel appears. And Rachel is kind of representative of Athena, and Athena's symbol is the owl. And the Athena in mythology came from the mind of Zeus. So it's just kind of this weird
some symbology there.
This weird connection there.
That's awesome. I didn't pick up on that. I did pick up on the architecture being like Grecian or Roman.
Yeah.
Or even almost like an Egyptian pyramid. It's just like a monolith within the city. It's a huge presence.
Yes.
So there's a huge amount of kind of mythology mixed into this.
Yeah. And even on top of that, the owl is a reference to the book where Deckard sees an owl, and by this time, because it's post-apocalyptic, there's radiation, fallout, and stuff like that. A lot of animals are extinct. And so kind of a sub-theme in the book that doesn't really is not a topic here, but animals are really important to humans to kind of express their empathy. Mm-hmm. And so you actually have, as the book's title called, electric sheep. So you have electric imitation animals. So the android equivalent for an animal. And so, the whole kind of pride in keeping an animal versus, a fake one versus a real one. And so that owl is a reference there, where the owl was one of the highly sought things that were, kind of legendary as well. And then you see the eye shine, and then the eye shine in Rachel, which kind of is an allusion to it being electric.
I love that eye shine effect, by the way. The slight just glow, reflective glow in the eyes of the replicant or more machine-like beings.
Yeah.
It's really
it's
really
simple.
It's a subtle and effective indicator of something.
Back before they got like the CGI red glowing eyes or the contacts that just don't look contacts. Like they don't look natural at all.
Mm.
Yeah, it looked like, how when you shine a light on an animal and their eyes reflect back.
Yeah, like a cat when you see your cat in the dark.
Right before you
hit it. It's literally retinal reflection. So they use that, and like you said, it's not CGI. And actually, one of my favorite things about this movie is the use of lighting.
That wasn't
incredibly clever.
I know it wasn't CGI, but I didn't think it was just lights either. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's so and I'll say that several times probably during this podcast, that the use of lighting in these scenes is just masterful.
Yeah.
Oh, the lighting is awesome in this movie. And the cinematography is excellent. Actually, let me look this guy up to call him out. Jordan Cronenweth.
And while you're doing name drops, Sid Mead is also worthy of discussion, because he was the designer for a lot of the practical and set design and just everything in the background, even down to the parking meters. He first was called in by Ridley Scott to design the spinners or the cars. The cars, because he was design consultant for Ford Motor Company, designing some concept cars for them. And so he has an industrial design background. Came in, Scott, and he didn't just draw, on a blueprint of a car. He drew in a background for the car to live in. And so Scott was impressed by that and drew him into, kind of design the whole set and everything. And they designed everything to the T that doesn't even show up on camera. So it's an actual immersive environment. It's amazing.
I love the details, and you can always pick up on the fact that they really put a lot of work into the details. Like, this is one of those movies where, similar to Alien, every time I watch the movie and look at the set, I just think, man, I wish I could be there just to, walk around and look at all the work that they did, because it will show up in maybe only one scene and that's it. But it's just so beautiful.
It's the thing about sets before CGI where people put more time into them that make it feel more immersive. Mm-hmm. And there always is something lost in movies that do full CGI. It feels lazy almost in a way, where you don't have somebody who's putting that manpower into making it real. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what I really liked about this movie too, is just how immersive it felt. And also they don't make it feel like you're stupid when you're going into it, where they don't tell you anything. You have to figure it out as they are developing it. So build that with the world. It was very immersive for me.
Yeah, there's not really any exposition. I mean, they do have that that bit of text at the beginning where it kind of sums up a little bit of everything. But when you go after that, it kind of just drops you in and says, "Here you are."
And that's because
figure it out.
They cut out the voiceover,
the
which was the exposition in the theatrical release. So kind of like silence is a byproduct of the cut of the voiceover, but it also lends to that ambiguous nature and everything. So
yeah, it proves you do not need the voiceover for this movie. The mood and the environment and just the characters' actions say it all.
So wait, I was unaware of a voiceover. What
the original cut of this movie had it? Harrison Ford was voicing over his thoughts during the movie.
Oh, that would have been.
It's pretty controversial because I saw the theatrical cut as well, and the voiceover gets a lot of flack because it seems like the delivery is pretty flat, just like the rest of his, outward appearance here. And some people even say that Harrison Ford tanked the voiceover because he didn't want to do it, and
he was upset about doing it,
right? And even Ridley Scott, because this is one thing why we have so many edits of it, because Ridley Scott, apparently didn't get his choice versus the studios meddling, where they basically went back and forth on doing the voiceover 3 times, and so people were kind of jaded and. Tempers were high because of voiceover being one of those contentious points. So
when it came to voiceover, what Harrison Ford was doing his mental process during the plot of the movie?
Yeah, so
pretty much.
That's like a noir style, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly noir style trope where he's going by and basically narrating his thoughts. This is what happens. Like for example, when Bryant tells him, uses the term. Skin, whatever they are.
Skin jobs.
Yeah. Then Harrison Ford goes and says, Bryant, this is what Bryant means by skin jobs. They're the replicants, yada, yada, yada. So some of it was fitting. Some of it was just too on the nose, in your face, like unnecessary.
Explaining things you didn't actually need explained.
Right. And it takes away from kind of the message and the ability of the movie to show you the story and the meaning instead of just telling you. So
that's exactly what I was thinking. If you didn't say that, I was just about to say that just explaining it takes you out of that immersion into the story. And,
and that's a very basic simplification of it. And of course, there's pros and cons of having the voiceover and the different edits. But the other main edit that people we'll talk about later, is the unicorn dream, and then the ending had a different ending in the theatrical showing.
The unicorn dream puts a not very different spin on the film, but it teeters over the meaning of the ending.
Yeah.
Right.
In a different direction.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Anyway, speaking of the unicorn, I forgot to talk about Gaff, who we get the first sign of him dropping an origami somewhere, which comes into play later.
Oh, yeah.
But no need to get into that further.
The origami.
Origami.
Anyway, what did y'all think of Tyrell and Rachel? Our introduction to them.
My first thought was creepy.
Tyrell's creepy?
Oh,
I didn't think he was that creepy.
I think he's just...
I thought he was eccentric, maybe.
He's not as creepy as the Tyrell equivalent in 2049.
No. I agree.
He's not as malicious, but he's maybe way too consumed with the idea of creating life and being the god of something.
I'm going purely off of first appearance, not even interaction.
You just don't like his thick glasses.
His thick glasses, his slick back hair, and Irina kind of brought up a thing because I told her earlier, I thought the same thing. This guy's a little creepy and kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, and Irina, you may take over if you'd like to explain that. I don't want to take your words.
Well, I think the biggest part I was saying about that was that we are kind of trained by films to think that whoever the leading member of the corporation is will end up evil.
Yeah.
They're always just evil, working under the radar, doing something...
It's a trope.
...dastardly. And so the whole time, you're kind of expecting him to be, this guy is probably bad news, but then he never does.
Yeah, I love how there's no straight up villain in this movie.
Yeah.
Even the ones that you think are the most villainous, the ones they frame as being villains, the more you learn about, the more you peel the onion back on certain characters, the more you're like, I kind of feel bad for this guy.
Well,
yeah.
I feel like the main villain in this one is equal in character to the one from Ghost in the Shell.
No, wait, you guys. The villain.
No, that's
the real villain is man.
Yeah.
The
The real villain is
Look
the
in a mirror.
system.
Look in a mirror.
Man versus the machine.
Oh yeah, but we already have our two Ghost in the Shell parallels with Tyrell is definitely Henka.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, yep, they're creating these beings. Henka is a little more sinister.
Cutter,
Tyrell's
specifically.
Yeah,
Right.
Cutter. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's
Cutter.
definally a
That's
lot of
even an
parallels.
evil name.
Yeah,
There
I
we
promise.
go.
Blade Runner being the seminal work it is an influence for a lot of things, but Ghost in the Shell specifically took a lot of...
quite a few things.
They used Blade Runner as reference for even the original anime.
All right, Rachel. This is another case of
Rachel.
this is another case of first impressions. She seems a little dry. I don't know what to think about her, but she's kind of putting me under a spell.
She has a little bit going on,
Yeah.
like behind her eyes when she's talking to Harrison Ford in the interview.
And
There's
the
something about her that's
changes.
almost kind of sardonic in a way, where there's a little bit of a grim sense of humor, a little behind the eyes, the way she's answering.
Yeah.
Are
her
you saying I'm a
questions.
lesbian, or like what was that
Yeah,
kind of
it was
retort?
like-
Was that question to determine if I was a lesbian or if I'm
A human or lesbian.
Yeah. The actress Sean Young does a lot with a little though in this performance,
Yeah.
and she's another one of the strong aspects of the film. And I actually really love her look, like the design. It's very old new, like
Yeah.
in a weird way.
You
where
know,
it's-
maybe for you, Reese, but
She's got those nice 80s shoulder pads that carried all the way to 2019.
while there's
And
characters,
pyramid hair.
while there's characters in this movie that I like more, I think the most iconic looking character from this movie is her.
Oh, yeah.
When you
I can
see
agree with
her,
that.
the silhouette and just her the look is just
I mean,
You know exactly who it is.
I mean, yeah, but you know, there are plenty of characters where that's a negative thing.
I love Jar Jar Binks.
Exactly, you exactly know his silhouette.
But this is a good movie we're talking about.
yeah,
so
I agree.
It's not like Rachel.
I agree.
don't
I'm
jump
just
the gun
saying
here.
it's it's not quite what I'm attracted to.
I'm not talking about attraction. I'm just saying like she I think she is
design.
one of the more iconic things from this movie, at least from an aesthetic standpoint.
And she doesn't scream 80s like
Yeah.
Roy does, that we'll talk about later.
Well, the thing that I feel like the point of her look was that she was sophisticated, intelligent, and exotic in some
Yeah, a
way.
little bit.
So, like, no other woman probably is like her.
yeah.
No one else has a square head.
The thing
Anyway,
is,
I like
she
Rachel.
has status behind her because she's high up in the Tyrell Corporation. So, you know, her turn later on is more impactful because of where she came from.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right. Ready to move on?
sure thing.
Searching Leon's hotel room, Deckard finds photos and a synthetic snake scale. Roy and Leon investigate a replicant eye manufacturing laboratory and learn of J.F. Sebastian, a gifted genetic designer who works closely with Tyrell. Deckard returns to his apartment where Rachel is waiting. She tries to prove her humanity by showing him a family photo, but after Deckard reveals that her memories are implants from Tyrell's niece, she leaves in tears. Meanwhile, Pris locates Sebastian and manipulates him to gain his trust. So let's talk about our boy Roy,
yeah.
who I will say does not look like a Roy, but apart from that, this character is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I
yeah,
have to agree.
Best character in the movie, Kuze.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's what I was saying, is
Well-
that he's very, very much that kind of character.
I will
Yeah.
speak real quick about that. Kuze, while cool for Ghost in the Shell, I feel like he does not compare to.
Can this
Are
not?
we talking about acting or what? Like how that was influenced by
They're-
this? Because
He-
it most
he means-
obviously
just their
was.
character and their depth and what they're about.
Well, if you think
Yeah.
about it, you have two characters that were created by man. Both are that sort of replicant status, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's kind of more android, but the basic concept, and both of them are trying to figure out why. You know, both
Yeah.
of them are angry at the system that created them. It is very much a similar trope.
Okay, so
But that's not unique to either of these
yes,
two movies
but-
either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up, AJ.
But-
I was trying to make a
but
point to Noah.
you take this to, like, I don't want to go towards the ending too much, but there's a lot more depth in character with Roy
yeah,
versus the other guy who's like he's a complex character, but he's just I'm mad.
Well,
he's not just I'm mad.
I'm mad. I don't know who I am. It's just I don't know.
You're shortchanging Kuze too much. He's not a titan like Roy is, but he still has more dynamic.
Yeah,
no, I know. I agree. In general, he's a very complex character, and he is a really cool character.
Yeah.
But there's so much symbolism in everything that Roy does.
I think I was just saying it's less about that and more about the actual building blocks of the character, not how the betrayal or how well they actually.
Okay, so you're just making a parallel between like this is that kind of character.
They're both very similar in how they were constructed. Now this one, I think Roy was better done for sure. But yeah, that's all.
But
I thought you had said that
dunk on Ghost in the Shell for everything it doesn't do quite as well
Ghost
as
in the Shell sucks.
I wasn't.
So taking us back to Blade Runner here.
But
let's
Thanks,
get back
JJ.
to Blade Runner.
Roy, you mentioned his appearance earlier a little bit, and part of that is kind of the stereotypical Aryan.
Yeah.
Where when Philip K. Dick wrote this book, he had already written The Man in the High Castle, which for those of you who don't know, it's kind of an alternate history of the ending of World War II.
Yep, and
so he had done
an Amazon
research
show
on
based
that.
off it as well.
Exactly, and so when he envisioned his androids or replicants, he was envisioning Aryans, kind of the hypothetical perfect creature or alternate version of humanity, and so that's why they kind of chose this stylistic choice for, especially Roy, kind of that blonde, just pristine looking Aryan.
It's like call it blonde.
It's like platinum blonde.
Yeah.
Right.
one character that you can compare Roy to, strangely, that genetically made human in Rocky Horror Picture Show. He's like this blonde, shirtless, buff dude or whatever.
Actually, I can see that.
Yeah, and
Johnny Bravo?
I just
Little less hair.
a little less hair, slightly less of a triangle torso. But yeah, they're both kind of biogenetically engineered, Aryan, blonde, blue-eyed,
Danish
characters. I don't know if they're both Danish, but
even the thing about Rutger Hauer's performance here is like, even without him being front and center, that this is the alpha replicant.
Right.
Oh yeah,
like he's
holds weight.
Yeah, he's on a mission, and his eyes, they're just magnetic.
Yeah.
Gosh.
like
he has a lot of presence.
Well, and speaking
the
of
first
eyes, it's
time-
a pretty big motif in this movie.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And we touched on that with the glint, the eye glint, the lighting already. But yeah, the movie even opens on the eye with the reflecting the explosion from the pipes from LA, the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and that Blade Runner 2049 as well, very eye centric, and the Voight-Kampff test, that's
The mind
through the
comp
eyes.
test.
Yeah, the
There's too
dilation
much
of the
area.
eyes is very indicative of. Yeah, let's talk more about eyes.
There's just so much detail in this entire movie.
We also, this is the bulk of, not the bulk, but the beginning of Deckard's detective work, where he finds what he at first thinks is a fish scale ends up being a snake scale, and thus through that some enhancing on his computer.
Enhance.
Which is kind of cool. I do want to say
cool.
I like that. I don't know how it works. How your a two-dimensional photo can have different
8K
layers
cameras
that you can look around through. But it was a cool effect having him zoom in and around corners and through reflections to find evidence in a photograph. I do like that sequence.
Little did they know that he could zoom in around objects to find people.
That's not how it worked.
Yeah.
sort of wasn't it?
No. He zoomed in and he had to move the camera each time because he zoomed in.
No, I know he moved it, but then it looked like an object would go to like the left of an object and see from a different angle.
No, that it's.
Is that not how it was, Reese?
No.
Am I crazy?
You're crazy.
It was it was a mix. He would like shift to the right, enhance, and then he could kind of like see a little more behind a level, and then at one point he like enhanced on a mirror reflection and saw into the reflection. Like it was weird. I don't even know how they did it, but it was.
I don't know. I thought at one point it looked like there was nothing there, and then he zoomed in, and then it saw it from another angle. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, no, I know exactly which portion of that part you're talking about.
Yeah.
it does look like that, but it is just it's because whenever he zooms in, it zooms in too much into one area. So he has to kind of like take it back a step and say, okay, move over to the left a little bit, and zoom in some more, move over to the left, zoom in some more, and then it's way too close to that.
I love future detective work, though.
Yeah,
where
it's like, really cool.
And even though I don't think even in the future you could ever do that to a photograph, I like just seeing how future detective work would be, where it's like, oh, this is like this new tech that's unheard of, and they're figuring out this about this because, I have no idea how they did that, but it seems convincing.
To be fair, it wasn't a photograph. It was actually something that had been either...
it was a photograph. It was from...
No, I mean, it was a digital photograph. It wasn't like
it's a Polaroid picture.
It was a Polaroid. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway, we're dwelling on the photo too much.
I thought... Wait. So he just... I thought he took a photo.
No, he got the photo from Rachel after he told, which we should talk about that moment. That's more crucial to the story than this.
Any of this.
But yeah, he got the photos from Rachel after she left all the photos that she thought were parts of her childhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then in that case, I have to...
I think we might be getting mixed up.
Yeah, this is the photos from Leon's hotel room that he finds in the drawer.
He raids Leon's hotel room and finds those photos.
that clears it up for me, because I was like, that totally clears it up for me, because I was like, why does she have this evidence?
She left her picture behind with him when she was trying to prove that she had a child.
Yeah, you've been listening to too many Nickelback hits. It's addled your mind.
Yeah,
photograph.
I was really racking my brain though as to why she had that picture, and maybe I just like wasn't paying attention. I was like, why does she have this evidence amongst her childhood photos? But yeah, I do want to talk about that moment anyway, though, with the Rachel figuring out that she is actually a replicant when she visits Deckard in his, I guess, apartment.
Yeah.
This was a good scene.
Yeah, I think it establishes kind of the fact that she already suspected. Yeah. But having someone say it or declare it so bluntly kind of just, all right.
He did say it bluntly.
And it takes a good performance from Sean Young to get you to feel sad for a character who just realizes her whole past was just a piece of programming. Yeah. Like just an implant.
And I love his immediate trying to take it back. He's I'm just joking. It's fine. Go home.
I'm just joking. You're normal. Go home. Yeah.
Who's to say that any of our memories aren't just programmed memories?
Okay, David.
You make a very
it's funny
point.
It's funny though. Why would you even say that to make someone feel better after you just recited their dreams to them in their childhood?
Bad joke.
Just
bad joke. It's fine.
There's no crawling out of that.
Also, the way he said it was just so like lazy. Like I don't know. He's. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, it was a bad joke. You can leave now.
It shows Deckard. So what's a little bit just on the appearance, I like the cinematography or the camera shots, the real close-ups. There's a lot of close-ups in the framing of these pictures, a lot of occluded shots where there's a lot of levels, a lot of stuff in the foreground, lots of beams of light shining in. Just that adds to that intimacy, and you're kind of in close with everything, and it's got that cramped feeling, but also you're not out in the hustle bustle where everything's artificial light with the neon. Inside you've got the halogens and the candlelight and the natural sunlight coming in. But with the beams of light, it's kind of like, even later in the movie, it's like intrusion into privacy. And so they're just like interrogating each other. She asks him if you've ever taken the Voight-Kampff test yourself, kind of introducing that first little question mark.
Was that the cinematographer and Ridley Scott's intention to have it be this intrusive light that seems like it's invading a space it shouldn't be? Or?
Yeah, not maybe necessarily in this scene, but later scenes, and those beams of light intruding into indoor scenes is pervasive throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on there's definitely tons of strategically placed beams of light in this movie. I never knew there was a significance behind it, though, other than purely just to look cool.
The camera work that they had to do in some of these scenes, especially in the alley scenes where they couldn't get long shots or even wide shots, they are really kind of figuring things out with the technology at the time, and it's really some genius work that they're doing, and I think it really adds to the overall feel of the movie. It really puts you in there, with the close-ups on the face, and
Oh, for sure. I love the lighting work, as I've stated before.
And it's not just a flat scene with a backdrop. It's the whole apartment's fleshed out. You've got stuff in the foreground, shadows and light, and it's just, I don't know. I like it a lot.
Me too. And all the outdoor scenes as well, too, with the use of neon lighting and the aesthetic is so cool. Just all the color work is amazing. This is another one of those movies. I know we talk about this a lot, but it's
Colors are pretty.
Yeah. No, but yeah, colors are great, and it is a very postcard worthy movie where almost every scene is just, it's like a work of art.
You could just take a snapshot of any scene.
Yeah. Call back to our Tomb of the Dragon Emperor episode, which
that's what I'm here for.
I smell a 7 coming.
That was an episode where someone gave that movie a 7.
I stand by it. That was a 7-worthy movie.
Yeah, rewatchability.
Yeah, rewatchability. Beautiful. Whoever was the cinematographer knew what they were doing.
Did y'all feel a connection between, like a organic connection between Rachel and Deckard, or did you feel like it was forced?
He does force her at one moment, but
He sure does.
I felt an organic connection. I thought it worked.
I felt organically there was this kind of intrigue. I think it's everything happens so fast, but it's I think in this world where everything probably feels a little either sterile or synthetic, finding something that's unique, it probably stands out more.
Yeah.
So having that connection, I could see that.
Now, also, Deckard has been heavily drinking. We're showing that intentionally because I think it's, kind of showing the nature of man in this world is depressed. And so kind of forcing your humanity out, your empathy towards other beings is almost like a going through the motions, and it's an exaggerated effort.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be drinking a lot if I was in this world too, to be honest.
Not to mention there's this, even though the places are crowded, every single person you encounter is in their own way kind of isolated to themselves. So,
Yeah.
adding to that.
Before we move on the story, I want to touch quickly on the scene between Deckard, Pris, and JF Sebastian, who they figured out is associated with Tyrell.
He's totally not weird or creepy.
Yeah, he makes all these little toys, and he plays chess games with Tyrell, and he had
another chess scene.
Yeah, a lot of input into the making of these replicants.
I didn't find him very creepy.
I actually didn't find him creepy.
He just seemed like a lonely, kind of sad guy who likes
almost
to
childlike.
to amuse himself by making toys.
Sebastian, I think, is a little bit of a character in the book that's not in the movie outright, called Isidore, who is what they refer to as a special with lower IQ, and everyone is tested for IQ in this world, and so the special people have lower IQs and are assigned lower functions in society, and so I feel like the kind of childlike innocence of him trusting other people is kind of conflated from that character into this movie.
It's a kind of an uncomfortable interaction where that the wolf is in the sheep's whatever. I guess.
Wolf in sheep's clothing? Is that what you're going?
No, he let the wolf into the some
chicken
sort
coop.
of reference to the chicken.
Well, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
That, or you could call her the Trojan
it.
horse.
I think that's
the
better.
Rest of them.
Yeah. No, he was right. It was the wolf in the chicken coop. I was mixing my
there you
metaphors
go.
with
I mean, you could have gone with
something
an
else.
electric sheep reference, but that's fine.
I could have, but I'm not that intelligent.
Letting the electric sheep in.
Yeah.
Surprise, it's a wolf.
But yeah, the whole time that the moment that S.J. Sebastian or J.F. Sebastian lets this guy in, like, he's gonna be toast at some point in this movie.
Yeah.
As much
Poor
as you do end up feeling sorry for Roy in the beginning, he's a means to an end.
Yep.
And yeah.
Him and his
But
island of
you-
misfit toys.
And that one little robot that's obviously a small person who just always hits the side of the door and spins off in a direction. I love that guy. Mm-hmm. Shout out to that guy.
He did a good job.
Yeah.
The Ridley Scott's Ewoks.
Yep.
A photograph from Leon's apartment and the snake scale lead. See, this is why I should have read this ahead of time. Then I would have fixed my own issue with the photograph. I'm a dummy. Anyway, a photograph from Leon's apartment and the snake scale lead Deckard to a strip club where Zora works. After a confrontation and chase, Deckard kills Zora. Bryant also orders him to retire Rachel, who has disappeared from the Tyrell Corporation. After Deckard spots Rachel in a crowd, he is attacked by Leon, who knocks the gun out of Deckard's hand and attacks him. As Leon is about to kill Deckard, Rachel saves him by using Deckard's gun to kill Leon. They return to Deckard's apartment and, during a discussion, he promises not to track her down. As Rachel abruptly tries to leave, Deckard restrains her and forces her to kiss him. Rachel continues to resist, and Deckard blocks her attempts to leave. He persists in his advances, and she ultimately relents. That scene would not hold up today, but let's rewind and go back.
At the same time, it's kind of described in a way that's worse than what happened.
Yeah. I don't know if it's described worse than what happened.
Well, the thing is hard to explain.
Let's go back to the beginning of that paragraph, though, and then we'll end on that thing. But, so we got the snake scale stuff, and the killing of Zora. What'd y'all think of all this? Zora was the one who worked at that, I want to say, strip club?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah, sort of.
An exotic nightclub.
Yeah, it was some kind of nightclub with
there were snakes. It's exotic.
Going on.
Yeah. I would say
They were.
this is the one time that, or not, maybe not the one time, but Deckard didn't seem too hesitant to shoot and kill this person.
Nope.
Like, it wasn't like, I want to capture this person and question her.
I think it was because she was strangling him to death. And so that may have motivated him a little more.
But I feel like these Blade Runners are given more leeway as far as how they carry out their business. Because I guess they're supposed to be experts. They're supposed to know what they're doing. But, he's almost more like a merc or a bounty hunter, too, combined with detective.
But if you look at his reaction after he does finally kill her, he does not seem happy. At all.
Well, he's not happy about it, but she was just running away. It wasn't like she was past the point of attacking him. She was just trying to get out of there.
Yeah, but his mission is to take them down, and she only started running away after she was caught by the people around her coming into the room, and then she's like, oh, better run now.
Yeah, and they have technically they have humans' blood on their hands, so I guess they are murderers.
In the book, I guess they are bounty hunters, and their procedure is to administer the Voight Kampff test to determine why, if they're an android or not, or a replicant or not, before they retire them. Because one of the kind of critical issues is why they're doing this to the Nexus 6 models, because there's a concern that, especially with Rachel, that there's a false positive, and so they were actually killing humans, or even the special people with lower IQs, because they, wouldn't process the test properly. But because she did attack him, that kind of forebears that
guilt. Yeah, her being guilty.
Well, that requirement of administration of the test before they retire them. But like Noah pointed out, his unhappy look of having retired this android, I think he's having already encountered Rachel, and the lines are blurring between replicant and human for him, especially having shot, a female in the back as she's running away and fleeing. He's kind of second guessing himself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He second guessed after the second shot.
The first shot didn't kill.
She should have just stopped resisting.
Yeah.
Well, and there are also like 3 panes of glass involved too. That didn't help.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That led to a funny conversation when we were watching it, where after he shot her and she was going through the glass, I noticed that it looked pretty cool cinematically. And I said, What did I say? I was like,
No. Okay, so what happens here is David's watching this with us, and the girl gets shot in the back, falls through some glass, and he says, "That was satisfying."
Yeah, I was talking about the glass shattering and the way that they filmed it. I see exactly how that was.
It was funny timing though. You're like, the woman gets shot in the back, and you're like, that was satisfying.
I
really sexy.
I did mention it to
all heads
David.
turned to look at him.
And I was like,
David, you're talking about the glass breaking, right? He's like, yeah, good.
Thanks for the alibi, Noah.
When she goes through the third glass pane, that sounds funny, but I didn't know they had slow motion technology at that time that could capture it going that slow without you being able to see the frames. But it's actually very well done. For some reason, I thought that was a more modern technology.
I feel like
to
that
have.
might have been like the first use of it or something, or
I
like
don't
they
know.
just had the technology.
The cool thing about you bringing that up is that while I was watching it, I was thinking along similar lines where there are so many times I see the slow motion effect used where now watching them, you realize, oh, that's kind of an outdated thing. But in this, it's used in a more effective way that makes sense and it doesn't feel dated.
Yeah.
It feels intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, think about Dread in the way they use slow-mo.
Awesome.
Legitimately called slow-mo, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's slow-mo.
Okay. Deckard has his first unicorn dream.
I don't remember a unicorn dream.
You
watched a
weren't
different
paying enough
cut.
attention, my friend. If you don't remember a unicorn,
So
there was some unicorn.
I must have looked away.
Well, I
for a
should say
moment.
only unicorn dreams.
this is where we kind of get into the whole debate of, is Deckard a replicant or is he human? So the proponents of him being a replicant point to this unicorn dream heavily as evidence that he is a replicant.
Yeah, and it's further pushed with the origami at the end, which we'll
Right.
get to.
Wait. I watched this movie. I was focused on it the whole time.
You must have.
Are you
It's a
kidding?
very short scene. You
must
must
have-
have looked away.
Yeah.
yeah,
but-
or maybe we were talking or something.
After
guess.
it's pretty much after Rachel tells him of her dreams and her specific memories. He is a little more focused. I want to say it's just he becomes more focused on his thoughts and dreams, and it emphasizes this unicorn dream that he has.
So
where
wait,
the
is it-
unicorn just riding through the forest.
I always thought it was funny. I think I may have even brought it up when I was watching it. I was like,
Wait.
this is interesting.
Is it at that part where she's at his place after
No.
he had just been
No,
beat
she had
up?
left. She
So
was
this
gone.
is the unicorn little vision dream, whatever happens, not while he's sleeping, but he's kind of like
Daydreaming.
sitting at the piano, daydreaming. And then that happens, and almost after that, he has a kind of revelation and then goes back to the evidence and
Gosh.
figures out a clue.
That's weird. I must have
Zoned out a little bit.
gone into a parallel universe where the other one didn't have the unicorn.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
hanging out with AJ then.
Yeah.
Well, this dream
and then
wasn't
came to
in
this one.
the theatrical release. Maybe it wasn't even the director's cut.
I think it was in the director's cut. It just wasn't in the theatrical.
It's a pet scene for Ridley Scott because of the implications. But yeah, it wasn't in all of the edits.
Yeah, because famously Ridley Scott thinks that Harrison Ford or Deckard is a replicant, and Harrison Ford thinks he's human. So there's actually,
Interesting.
even in the writing, even the people behind this movie, there's debates about whether he's a replicant
That's so
or human.
Yeah,
Cool.
even
That
beyond those
is some
two in
awesome
the crew, it's pretty split. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
contention on this set because of the multiple edits and a lot of the stuff going on. Like Ridley Scott, I think his brother had just passed away and he had just walked from Dune or something like that. And there's a lot of contention on the production of this. There's a lot behind the scenes, but
That's some
this is
Inception
one of
level
them.
stuff.
By the way, just a quick aside,
more than
Ridley Scott
Inception.
would have definitely pulled off a Dune movie.
Yeah.
Like he's one of the few directors I would trust with something
Especially
like that.
if he wanted to split it into two movies, which I think would have helped a
Yeah.
lot.
Rachel saves Deckard from an encounter with Leon, shooting him in the head. And then we have our kind of, they start to bond in a way, somewhat romantically. But I do like this confrontation where he's saved by her. That guy gets a hole blown open in his forehead just as Leon's about to kill him.
He was just mad about the Oedipal implications. He had to take him out somewhere.
It's another instance though where Deckard's really not your typical action hero guy. He's being manhandled by Leon, and it took Rachel being there to save him.
Exactly, yeah.
Just kind of
Crazy.
stumbles out of that situation.
Which is cool. Good for her.
Yeah, I like this movie. You want to say that Harrison Ford's an action star, but you watch this, there's nothing action about him in this movie, really.
Oh, yeah.
Except at the end where he just... Not even at the end. At the end,
Yeah,
he's just
he
like...
gets beat.
Just rumbling, bumbling,
Yeah.
stumbling.
He gets
Yeah.
beat.
So the beginning of the scene, or the kind of romantic buildup of their relationship, it gets a little... Harrison Ford gets a little aggressive, a little forceful.
Yeah, that
but
would not go well.
I do like before this, though, where you see the glint in her eyes, and then he's walking behind her, and you see his eyes kind of glint. Like, with that, what you've seen in only the replicants so far, the eye glare.
Yeah.
Such an effective and subtle use of that.
I always thought he was a shapeshifter.
That
I
eye
know.
shine is another kind of piece of evidence that the pro replicant side say that he is Decker is a replicant. I think Ford himself has come out and saying that was not an intentional eye shine, whereas all the other ones were. So
it has to be. It's too perfect. It's the subtlest of glints, but you see it. Like with her, you see it full on, but with him, it's like he's at the perfect distance for you to kind of see it. It seems like there's no way that could be an accident.
Well, maybe as far as Harrison Ford was concerned, he's right, and everyone else is concerned, he's right, and Ridley Scott was just like,
now keep in mind,
here you go, guys.
Keep the CGI
don't mind if I do.
Precise.
Right.
And as masterful as these guys were with those, aiming huge amounts of light, I mean, there's bound to be some bounce back and stuff. So
what is your opinion, AJ?
We'll find out.
I want to know.
I like to believe that scene, even if it is an accident, they left it like that to seed his character being a replicant.
And the ambiguity of this movie through almost its entirety is almost one of the identifying hallmarks of this movie.
The message of it is to be ambiguous. You're meant to question what he is, but the ambiguity is to show you that replicants are just as human as humans. So you're not supposed to really know what he is.
So if they have emotions and memories, and they are aging just like us, what is the difference?
One of the things
that's a good question.
In particular is how they feel pain is way different. That was the indicator that they made a couple of times, where first Leon puts his hand in ice cold stuff, doesn't feel anything, puts it out. Then whatever that Harley Quinn.
I know what you're saying, and the difference is those were the Nexus 6 units, which are different than the normal the future replicants.
Exactly, and but even what's his name, Roy, didn't feel as much pain as.
I'm not arguing about the Nexus 6 units.
Decker.
I'm talking about the future ones.
No, I know. But my point is they did that on purpose to make it really ambiguous as to whether he is one or not. So it really could go either way. He might just be the super advanced one, or the one where they had some sort of breakthrough, or he's human. Or maybe it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, it would be one of two. He couldn't be a Nexus 6, or he'd be dead in 4 years. But...
No, I know, but he wouldn't have to be a Nexus 6. He'd have to be some other variation of a replicant.
Yeah, we'll talk about what side we fall on at the end of this story synopsis. But let's end this with on how uncomfortable were you with the treatment of Rachel by Deckard as she tries to leave his apartment? Irina, I will hand this one over to you since you are the sole
baton pass.
Well, yeah, I specifically remember when we were rewatching this, just saying, "Yeah, that wouldn't fly today if it was released in theaters right now."
Not so much.
I think issues like this are very complicated because, especially depending on which era you're taking the choice of initiative from. Right now, currently, people would say, no, girls have to always consent all the time. Consent is a big issue. I consent. But there was a period of time where girls were inclined to like sort of the forceful male position, where they're kind of imposing themselves on the female a little bit, as long as they were into it, I guess. But
how barbaric.
I think portraying it in a film is kind of scandalous because obviously you don't know what's going on in her head.
Yeah.
So it's all relying on the way she's acting there. And so I think looking at it face value, that's uncomfortable. But then she starts responding favorably.
She likes
it. She's okay with it, but obviously it's a message that a lot of people wouldn't be on board with.
Do you also think he was maybe keeping her from going out there because at that point she was wanted, as in she was pretty much, she was a bounty at that point.
It was like a mixed motivation, I think.
I think that was part of it, but I think he was mostly on the lustful side.
Yeah.
I viewed it a little differently than lustful. Maybe he was on the lustful side, but I thought of it more as you're not running away this time, because in the previous iterations he had tried to, open up to her, or not open up to her, but try to like get some kind of thing going on, and maybe to him there was some sort of chemistry.
Yeah.
And I guess
always left.
You could say
and she
there's
always
some sort of
she had a
unspoken
tendency to
chemistry.
just immediately run away anytime she had an emotion.
Yeah.
Well,
If
the thing
you're-
is, she already did give some indication of
Yeah.
liking him back.
Well,
it
there-
was
She
Sorry,
let him
go ahead.
kiss her
Finish.
on the ear. So
Yeah.
I guess.
Go
but
ahead, Irving.
still, like that. I mean, that doesn't excuse
I think you
the
could
forceful
also,
nature, though.
if you, it just kind of setting the people aside for a second, you can take this whole sequence symbolically a little bit, because this is just after she shot a replicant, which she knows is kind of her own kin now that she's
Yeah.
aware she's a replicant. And she was working for Tyrell. So in this sequence, she's staying at his place, and this is the first time she takes her hair down.
Yeah, I was
And now
just
it's
about to bring it up.
When you're thinking about it in this way, it's like there's no turning back almost.
Yeah.
And then this sequence of her kind of submitting to him is there's no turning back. I can't be myself again.
I took the hair going down as a sign of her coming to terms with her past not being real, and she's like, I'm going to decide to be a new person that is not based off of these fake
Yeah,
implants.
that's
I'm
okay.
going to put my hair down. And
Also,
I
the
also-
running away, trying to run away, could
Yeah.
be kind of like reforming to what she was.
Yeah.
You know,
I happen to view that slightly differently. I viewed it as, well, I err on your side, Reese, a little bit. But I thought of it more as she kind of had a choice between being a replicant and being a human. Like, because she's been implanted and she's thought her whole life that she was human. And then she realizes, oh, that's not actually the case. I'm not actually real human. But, I don't know, the
Letting the hair
symbology
down.
for letting
Yeah.
her hair down was kind of her deciding, all right, I'm going to be human. I'm going to embrace that side of myself.
although strangely, being a replicant and coming from a direction of being told what to do and
Yeah.
who she is, then she falls into the hands of Harrison Ford's character Deckard, who's then instructing her, say you want to kiss me, like
Oh, yeah.
basically directing her to do things.
Yeah.
So like that could be a really creepy interpretation of falling from
it is
one form of control to another.
It
That's
does
true.
that the commands turn into her asking him to do things though without him commanding. So I'm wondering like whatever that I don't know what it means. We can move on. But what you got, AJ?
I was just it's kind of a blurring of the lines, because we have before this stark contrast of empathy versus lack of empathy, and what defines the replicant, what defines humanity. Whereas it seems that these Nexus 6 units are more prone to be able to at least learn empathy, and the humans, especially in the role of a bounty hunter, like it was forbidden for humans to copulate with the replicants.
Right.
And all the bounty hunters before, in order to do their job as a weapon to hunt them down, they don't feel any empathy towards anything artificial. So now he is obviously coming to terms with, he does feel or have emotions towards who he knows, someone who he knows is a replicant. And his original purpose is to destroy that thing. And so it's kind of a breaking down of the barriers. And a little bit of context from the book. This scene actually happens quite later in the story. And Deckard is actually married. He's got a wife and a whole kind of life beyond this. But it's even further stark contrast between him being just, kind of a tool machine going through his job duties, no empathy, and then it's challenged, and then he kind of acquiesces to opening those floodgates to have emotional attraction to Rachel. And Rachel actually, it kind of turns out later that she manipulated Deckard with sex to survive and kind of help the other replicants out. And she's done that before in the past. So it's a kind of a little twist there that we don't see in the movie.
So that's in the book?
Right.
Yeah, that's in the book. Although I would say that thread is abandoned with the sequel to this movie.
Right.
But arriving at Sebastian's apartment, Roy tells Pris that the other replicants are dead. Sympathetic to their plight, Sebastian reveals that because of Methuselah syndrome, a genetic premature aging disorder, this life will be cut short, just like the replicants that were built with a 4-year lifespan. Sebastian and Roy gain entrance into Tyrell's penthouse, where Roy demands more life from his maker. Tyrell tells him that it is impossible. Roy confesses that he has done questionable things, but Tyrell dismisses this, praising Roy's advanced design and accomplishments in his short life. Roy kisses Tyrell, then kills him. Sebastian runs for the elevator, followed by Roy, who rides the elevator down, alone. Deckard is later told by Bryant that Sebastian was found dead.
This scene.
Oh, I do want to say there's another parallel to Ghost in the Shell, which actually wasn't in Ghost in the Shell, but it was a deleted scene where Major meets up with that lady to feel her face, and in the other cut of the film, she actually kisses that lady. Oh, okay. And these are both scenes of a replicant or a synthetic or an android feeling a regular human's face to kind of just see what's different, or like how are we different? Do we feel the same thing when we touch? So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. But that whole scene was kind of a game changer for me in terms of watching this movie. From that point on to the rest of the movie, I was committed, but like I was awake. I was engaged at that point.
You're like,
and I think Irina has a lot of really good points on quotes on that scene where Rutger Hauer Roy is in there and he's explaining kind of the way that he's trying to figure out the differences between him and...
It's just there are two scenes that I absolutely love from this movie, and there are a lot of movies where every now and then certain lines will pop up where I'll just think to myself, that's a good line. Yeah. And I can't quote it verbatim right here, but it's when he's coming to his maker, essentially. This is just such a huge scene. And talking to him directly, calling him father at one point. And then just the whole act of killing his own father after kissing him, and asking essentially for more life.
He literally says, I want more life.
I want more life.
Father.
And father, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's not only just a replicant problem, you start to realize that's a human problem, because everyone wants more life, essentially. And that's the whole problem with our existence, is that that's something we've never solved, and he can't solve it either.
Yeah.
Such a cool character. I mean, I'm not particularly fond of the time he gouges the dude's eyes out with his thumbs.
Well, again, it's the motif of the eyes.
Patricide.
I will say, you've said this before when we were watching it again, because you guys are watching it again for like how many times over, but you're always seeing something new. I was just watching it on the background just now, as we have it on in the background. Even without commentary, we can't hear anything, but I was watching him gouge the eyes out of...
Let's say pressing the eyes out.
Pressing the eyes out. He's
not gouging. He's not like scooping the eyes out.
No, he put his thumbs in his eyes and then he pulled down.
A gouge doesn't necessarily have to be scooping.
Regardless of what it is, I was watching him do this, and the emotional change on Roy's face as he's doing it, it changed like 4 or 5 times, where he goes from anger to crying, like he was upset, like he didn't want to do it. And then he went back to anger and then back to sadness. Like, he conveyed multiple emotions while crushing this guy's eyes out, which made me like his character that much more. There's way more depth.
Layers, man.
It's not just like, oh, I'm a villain.
Yeah.
Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster kind of relationship here.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely got that. He loves and hates his maker.
Yeah, and then
creator.
The crazy Dr. Frankenstein, he's so prideful in his creation that he's basically giving him a pass on whatever bad he's done.
So. See, that's another thing. That's a good point to bring up, because it's like, in him saying or telling him, I've done questionable things, and his maker basically disregarding that and saying, yeah, but you've done great things, is also denying him some sort of humanity, because you're not even guilty of bad things you've done.
His excuse to Roy was that, you might live shorter, but you shine twice as bright, or something like that. Like, that was the line. And it's like, that's not something someone who has only lived 4 years finds very comforting.
Well, thanks.
Well, okay, I guess I'll just quietly go die somewhere.
Because I've lived a bright life.
But, yeah.
Anyway, I was just telling him to explode.
Yeah. Noah, what did you think about the chess here? since you seem to.
Okay, in general, those scenes
Give people a background first. Yeah.
Yeah.
In general, they usually use those scenes to convey, oh, yes, I'm a genius. Oh, put that there, knock the queen over. Oh, yes, I win because I'm smart. I am a mastermind. But this one, it was a lot more natural in its execution. They're almost old friends, and they're just, hey, that's the match. Let's put this on. And then, I thought it was kind of cool how Roy whispers in, what's the guy's
Sebastian.
name? Sebastian's ear what move to make. And he kind of just outsmarts his creator on the chessboard.
Yeah.
And
Right, because Sebastian has lost every other game except for one by himself.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just found that to be really a cool way to do the chess scene, even if it's usually a cliche.
So
Yeah.
this chess game is actually a replication of what's known as the Immortal game, which is one of the most famous chess matches out there. And it's particularly famous because it was such a, underdog win where someone was pretty much all was lost. Their powerful pieces, their attacking pieces were all taken or captured. But then they turned around and got a checkmate with pawns. And so that's kind of symbolic of the pawns are uprising, the pawns being the servants or the replicants, and overthrowing the power.
That's a really, I don't know, I kind of want to read that now.
In that analogy, it reminds me of the story that Rachel had as a replicant with the mother spider having hundreds of babies, and the babies ate the mother. It's just symbolically, it's another symptom of the children uprising and taking over the creator or the
that was how Charlotte's
inventor.
Web went, wasn't it?
Yeah. This is all just Charlotte's Web.
Anyway, Sebastian is killed off screen, and that's sad.
Yeah, that was a little sad. I kind of wish
He's a little weird, but
I wish
He's like
he
a
didn't
child.
deserve that.
I wish Roy had stayed his hand on that one.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
Well-
Because I feel like that would enhance Roy as at least slightly more sympathetic to at least the weaker beings, I guess.
I guess it's, again, the gray area, the ambiguity. No one's straightforward, cut and dry.
Yes. All right. Moving on. At Sebastian's apartment, Deckard is ambushed by Pris, but he kills her as Roy returns. Roy's body begins to fail as the end of his lifespan nears. He chases Deckard through the building, ending up on the roof. Deckard tries to jump onto another roof, but is left hanging on the edge. Roy makes the jump with ease, and as Deckard's grip loosens, Roy hoists him onto the roof to save him. Before Roy dies, he delivers a monologue about how his memories will be lost in time like tears in the rain. Or tears in rain.
Boy.
It's one of my favorite lines.
Gaff arrives and shouts to Deckard about Rachel. It's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does? Deckard returns to his apartment and finds Rachel asleep in his bed. They leave the apartment block together, and it doesn't say this, but Roy sees the little origami on the floor of a unicorn. So,
Cue credits.
yeah. All right.
All of this ending.
So the whole Bradbury hotel sequence, you looked up the Bradbury.
Yeah, I got a little into it for some weird reason because I thought there was more to just I don't know about the Bradbury building, but I thought, oh, maybe it's a reference to Ray Bradbury. I'm gonna look that up.
There was significance
There
to
was,
it, though.
but not the way I thought, which was it had nothing to do with Ray Bradbury, and more that it was an actual building that they used in an older 1945 noir film, which I don't have up right now. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name.
It was a
Francis
nod
Ford
Coppola film, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
And-
it was a nod to noirs.
Yeah, which made sense that they used it in this one, which was a very noir-esque film. And but yeah, so that the two big uses were this movie and that one.
Yeah.
That was the main thing about it.
I love how Pris blends with the toy room initially. Like usually in a horror, this is like a horror setup.
Yeah.
But you would not see that person, and the person and the lead, the protagonist, would be wandering through the room, like, and you'd think, oh, which one is her? But in this one, it's right up front. You see her, but you're like, does he see her?
She blends.
Yeah.
This whole
She
last
blends
act
in.
just like basically goes off of the noir aspect and just turns into a thriller where he's just chased through the house.
It really does.
Yeah.
I love
That's where
it
I woke
so
up.
much.
I was awake.
Yeah. I love that fight, even though she gets a little flip kicky and a little crazy, a little
Harley Quinn.
Yeah, a little Harley Quinn.
And then like she just gets shot and just starts like spasming and
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
As David would
And
say,
shrieking,
satisfying.
She didn't break any glass.
We were all watching Deckard just how he's like, oh, how do I just make it stop? Like, it's just like writhing on the floor, and he just has this terrified look on his face as he's just like pumping bullets into his.
You like
and then here's Johnny through the wall, and then the whole. Do you all think it was an allusion to a Christ figure with the nail through the hand?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it's something you can't avoid thinking about. But
It's in a different way though. It's self-inflicted, so he feels he's trying to feel alive because he's feeling his body.
But in the end,
up.
he kind of sacrifices his life to save Deckard.
yeah.
Yep.
But there's also that kind of, I don't know whether there was anything behind this or not, but it seemed like there was symbology in the fact that both of them had injured or had their hand crippled in some manner.
On the same hand, too.
Yeah.
On the same hand. And I was wondering, is that kind of a hint that maybe he's a replicant in some manner, or is some other
know.
Or
thing
that
that I'm just
they're-
unaware of?
They're basically just kind of mirroring
Yeah,
each other.
exactly.
Or do you
They're
think
just-
that he's a weak replicant because he can't jump from building to building like Roy can?
So the reason I love this
Maybe
ending
not that.
is that I love how it doesn't deny that Roy is a force to be reckoned with. He's basically the peak potential of what he is. And so not even this one-man slaughterhouse, in quotation marks, can defeat him. He's basically being like pushed around the entire building the whole time.
Yeah.
So I love that. But
you never get the sense that Deckard has like the upper hand ever.
Definitely. And in most films, they would want that heroic moment where your lead, kind of turns the tables or something and outsmarts or outwits the main villain. But
But he doesn't.
didn't.
He fails and is about to
Yeah.
die. And
in fact, his own self-realization of, I'm actually okay with this. I'm okay with leaving is what ends up stopping him and helping Deckard up back onto the top of the building.
Yeah, but who knows why he decided to escape by basically running up and out and climbing outside of the building and poking
I
up
don't
through the
know.
floor. And
I think his adrenaline was probably going. He was like, where's the
Go,
next place
go,
I can
go,
go?
move.
But no,
Yeah,
to
to
answer
be
your
fair, you
question,
see
the way I saw that symbology of the hands, or at least Deckard's hand being crushed, was more of, because it was his weapon hand and it was where he held his pistol, I felt like that was more of a physical manifestation showing that his ability to kill the androids or the replicants indiscriminately was maimed or taken
crippled,
away.
Yeah.
Huh. But that also doesn't entirely explain why suddenly it's that Roy's hand also doing that.
I think Roy was kind of half
It
crazy.
was just
because
because his hand was broken.
Huh?
It's just because his hand was broken.
No, I know, but it just seems...
He's talking about
it
Roy's.
It just seems like kind of a random, suddenly his hand's broken.
Yeah.
Because if that's not symbolic in some manner, it's... why is it relevant to...
I would say
show
it
it
was
in
kind
that
of
form
Roy,
specifically.
Irina said, is him being just, peak physical. He's a dominant predator, just kind of toying with his prey. When he crushes Deckard's hands, there's 2 fingers. And then we see him, the effects of the genetic what's the word? It's catching up to him, the cellular degeneration.
Methuselah?
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
The cellular generation is catching up with him, where he's losing the control of his muscles and structural function. And so I think he's impales himself with a nail to kind of jumpstart those nerves in his
Yeah.
hand to be able to.
That is
to
Oh
use
yeah,
Excellent.
them.
that's clearly what he was doing. I just feel like there might have been some other symbology there, because there are so many films in which you can logic why something happened, but there is that underlying message in it. So I was just wondering if there might have been something, or if there wasn't.
I also
I don't know.
I don't know. I also do like when he goes up to Pris and puts her blood on his face.
Yeah.
And just starts
yeah.
howling like a wolf.
Yeah.
Like, just
yeah.
totally goes animalistic.
Predation, basically.
I don't know, something about that just... I was like,
It's satisfying.
yeah.
Well,
Yes.
he's like, these are my last moments. I'm gonna just have some fun.
Yeah, and what... I don't know if it was intentional, but his howl, like, the score takes the howl and kind of implements it into the score.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
in
sure
a way
that was
where it's
intentional.
like, yeah, it's kind of cool where they just parallel each other.
Yeah,
in
I
a
don't think
cool
it can
way.
be overstated how much the sound and the score really helped bolster this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, do you think that the howling was indicative of himself feeling like part of the pack of his dead friends? Kind of that.
Like he's a wolf?
Now
Could
he's
be.
that lone wolf, and he's on the hunt for
Could be.
that, and it feels like some sort of game now to him. Or is that just, or is he just completely bonkers and just
Could be.
howling?
I think it's just like he's about to die. He's
on
going
a
to
high.
he's going to live life
going
to the
berserk.
fullest. He's going to end on a high, as he said.
Well, here's the thing. He isn't going berserk very clearly. Otherwise, he would have absolutely mutilated.
Well, no,
Deckard.
He's going crazy, but he also has this mental clarity at the end. I feel like
See, I don't think it's crazy. I think you're right. It is a mental clarity where he's like, I'm going to throw everything else aside. I'm going to completely
Yeah.
unleash myself.
Well, when
to
you
the
when you
world.
think about it, he killed the very person who was probably his only hope for more life. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is it.
Yeah.
he's letting loose.
And I think this is one of my favorite film endings, and of which there are many, but this one stands out a lot because I just love that moment where Deckard is hanging off the rooftop and
The Lego
Roy, yeah. And Roy just looks at him and then talks about how like that what is it to live in fear or something
I've
like
seen-
that. What?
Now you he was pretty
well,
much
that's
comparing
later.
it to being a slave of fear.
So so I think in that moment, like he's had this whole time where he's realizing, well, this is the end of my life. I'm going to toy with this guy. But in that moment, he realizes, you know what? I already have my answer. We are basically the same. My life is just shorter than his, but we're basically carrying out essentially the same life, just in different manners. But
There's also a lot of questions about this scene too, about what it means. Mm-hmm. There's people that think that this is the moment that Roy is finally up close to Deckard and recognizes that he's a replicant. There's also what you said, which I actually subscribe more to what
I
you
like
said.
that one more. Yeah.
Where it's more him just realizing we're in this together. We are human. There's not a difference. You have to, and how he's just saying he's seen things that you've never seen before, and these memories will die, just like your memories will die. Mine are dying right now.
Yeah. And nobody else will ever know them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why he's assessing the worth of humans to the memories, which is what replicants also have. Their memories are some of the strongest things, and he's identifying with him over that.
I will say I don't agree with that first theory that
No, I just wanted to throw it out there because
No,
that's
I know.
one of the things that people have said.
But I wanted to say something about it. I don't agree that that's how or why he stopped going after Deckard. But there is precedent for believing that in whenever Deckard is having that fight with
Pris?
Pris, yeah, where she's about to kill him, then she, I think, looks in his eyes at some point, and suddenly she jumps off, does some cartwheels, and then he shoots her.
What?
Oh, I hadn't really noticed that, but
So she looks
thought
at him
he pushed her
more
off.
closely. He doesn't push her
So
off.
you think that
She was still
could
going after him.
potentially?
I think she was just
well,
being
that's it.
Catwoman with all the flips and everything.
Yeah.
Just-
She,
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing is, she's pretty crazy, so I could see it that way too. But there is that moment where I was just thinking, why did she just suddenly back off there?
yeah.
Well, it
Because
was
he didn't push her
dumb.
off.
She's
She
just
just
doing a
jumped
whole
off.
bunch of
Yeah.
acrobatics.
She's
for
playing with
some
her food,
reason.
just like
I know.
Roy,
Yeah.
except for I think she was actually going to
Playing
kill
with
him.
her food. Yep.
Yeah, okay,
but
let's,
I'm just saying.
Can I say the quote that was at the end there that he had? Because it was like two
Yeah, go ahead.
sentences, which I think was awesome.
and
We
become
all
death.
think it's awesome.
Was it? I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain.
Yep.
Time to die.
Most of that was
Time to die. That's how he said it.
a lot of that was actually Rutger Hauer. They had other things for him to say, and he was not wanting to do some of them, but he included like half of it, and the other half was his inspiration.
Yeah, the Tears in the Rain were specifically his lines that he added at the before.
I love Rutger Hauer so much. He's one of my favorite actors.
No, he's great.
He's awesome.
Or was great.
Anyway, that leads us to our final scene where Deckard checks on Rachel, and as they leave, after he realizes she's alive, they leave, and the origami is visible.
That was a nice little cherry on top.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot.
You wonder if it's... Yeah, it's Gaff... Is Gaff extending... Is he toying with him, or is he like, hey, I know, and you guys go live your life? Like, what is he saying?
There are a whole bunch of theories there, and I think what benefits this movie is there's so much ambiguity. But there are different ways to interpret it, because the entire time with his origami, it seems like he's kind of teasing or playing with Deckard. So, like, the first thing he makes is a chicken, which you can't help but think, oh, is he calling him a coward? Like, he's not taking on this case or moving forward in what's going on. I feel like the whole time he comes across as almost antagonizing. Like, he doesn't really like Deckard that much.
Looks mean, yeah.
Yeah. But he's following him around, obviously knows what he's doing most of the time, happens to be in the sidelines. And then the second man is that matchstick with the man with the penis.
Yeah.
And so, like, I remember reading somewhere that they were talking about how that potentially meant he was playing at the fact that he saw his attraction to Rachel and was kind of just leaving that as little notes. But the unicorn is a little more ambiguous. Like, you can either connect it to he's
input.
A replicant.
Yeah.
And the guy knows that he is. And that's kind of hinting at, hey, I know you're a replicant, but I'm not, either a warning or I'm going to leave you alone. Or it's just a unicorn representing Rachel and knowing that he has her or something, you know. So either way, he knows
it has
what he's
to be
doing.
a sign that he's a replicant because...
Yeah, it's...
What?
I was just going to say it's less ambiguous in my mind because Ridley Scott has come out and specifically said he included that for a specific reason.
Yeah, and the whole dream sequence with a unicorn, they just tie together too cleanly.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, he knows that there's an input with a unicorn, like a unicorn dream input. Mm-hmm. And he knows that Deckard has that, so he's like, oh, well, here you go.
Did they for sure state the implications of the unicorn dream?
Ridley Scott has.
Yeah.
What has he said?
He said that those scenes, and those were scenes that were cut from the original theatrical release, and so in the final cut, which he had supposedly total control of, he got his final vision that he wanted all along. He put in the unicorn daydream and the unicorn origami at the end, tying together to indicate that Deckard is a replicant.
Okay. So does anyone think that Deckard is not a replicant? Raise your hand.
I'm raising my hand.
You don't think he's a replicant?
I don't think he is. Personally, from what I watched.
In my opinion, Ridley Scott kind of ruins it because the whole motif of the ambiguity that runs throughout the movie is just completely kind of shot with, oh yeah, I'm throwing this in there to say yes, absolutely, one way or the other. Right. Like kind of just having his cake and eating it too. Like you kind of just ruined the whole message there by playing almost like J.K. Rowling, like Hermione's black. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Just kind of like
I don't think so. I think that Harrison Ford, you think he is a human from the beginning. He is framed as a human. Mm-hmm. And when you learn that he is a replicant, you're like, oh, what I originally identified as human is a replicant. And so the two are one, which is, it's like, oh, a human is a replicant is a human.
Yeah, I somewhat agree with AJ with slight changes. My belief is that he was meant to be neither. It was meant to be more ambiguous. It was meant to be that he's not supposed to be confirmed to be one or the other. It's supposed to...
That's what AJ thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought he was saying that he thinks he was not a replicant.
He thinks the original text is like it's meant to be unknown.
And I said that Ridley Scott making a definitive statement ruins that ambiguity.
Then I agree with you, AJ. I don't think that him being confirmed to be one is what the story is supposed to be about.
I don't think it ruins it. I think it just changes it into something different but equally good.
If you were to interpret him as he's actually human this whole time, but it would still have significance as far as both are the same, just from kind of different backgrounds. I think in the end, that part where basically Roy doesn't sacrifice, dies, but allows him to live, helps the human side realize that Deckard represents they aren't as different. They do have empathy. They're not just robots. And there's this sort of understanding that's kind of shattered if it turns out he is a replicant, and it just means, oh, all the humans are bad and the replicants are the better side.
But
you have the two poles, human and replicant. They're converging towards a middle gray area with the barriers being brought down. If Deckard is a replicant the whole time, then you're just saying in the end that replicants are the same as replicants, and the humans have no factor in the equation.
So I like the human narrative, but that doesn't deny the fact that he could be going through this crisis where he isn't sure whether he is human or not. And if you were put in the same situation, you would probably question the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I might be, all honesty here, I might be a little biased from the book with, the outcome of the book.
I think the thing, though, is I think they're still good interpreted through humans.
Yeah.
There's the Sebastian character. I think he's a good human character. I think or at least sympathetic in some way. I don't think all humans are evil. Even Tyrell, has clearly a god complex, does feel for his creations and feels for replicants, even if what his intention has been changed by others. I think it's still gray, and I don't know.
I think it's one of those things where I know this may not be the movie's intention at all, but based on your experiences, you can't help but read into things the way they are currently. But the way I viewed the replicants was almost sort of kind of on an immigrant level.
Yeah,
they're not treated exactly the same way, but the concept that, oh, you don't belong here, we're going to take you out of the country, out of our worlds, essentially. You don't have the same rights we do.
Yeah, and there's a certain social commentary there, too, because the book came out in the late 60s, and you can even kind of apply that to civil rights movement and even the Vietnam War, where, the United States goes in to fight Vietnam in kind of a pointless war here and lose the war, and it's like, why are we vilifying this other people here in their own country? And so there's that kind of social commentary about it too, but that was the book, not necessarily the movie.
Right. And so I think that having Deckard as a central character who is human kind of acts as that message where on the opposing side, the people that have a different view and haven't seen the plight of those being captured, killed, or what have you, there needs to be one central figure who has seen it and can change that message or the narrative for everyone else.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like his character is important to be human,
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that's why I feel like that's entirely why they chose to portray his character the way they did, because otherwise what's his character's point,
Right. And it's
why there needs to be some sort of bridge between the two characters, and in my opinion, you can't have that bridge if he's, a replicant.
Yeah.
But
unless he has entrenched himself in human culture and life, and automatically, and then comes out as replicant, I feel like that's like, that could prove to a whole bunch of humans that hey, there's not much of a difference, guys.
Well, I think I think that's why it's supposed to be ambiguous, though. I don't think he should be a replicant, because that ruins the whole. Well, I won't say it entirely ruins, but
it doesn't ruin anything.
It muddles the point of Roy's character and the completion of his kind of development at the end.
No, it doesn't, because it was a passing of the torch to Deckard, in my opinion, where it's like,
I could see that.
I don't know. My job is done. With my last few breaths, I'm going to this is the best thing I can do for replicants, and it is now in your hands to help us or do something positive.
But isn't that a lot less beautiful than him coming to the realization that both sides are pretty much the same, and that kind of acquiescence of his life for the sake of kind of the betterment of their relations?
For what it's worth, I don't even think Deckard he hasn't even realized he's a replicant, even by the end of this movie. He sees one clue that he might be. He still registers to me as human. Like, I do stand by the fact that I do think he is intended to be replicant by the end. It's at least supposed to provoke a whole bunch of questioning about what he is.
That's the point.
Maybe it doesn't matter at a point where a replicant is a human or not. Maybe replicants can be human.
Yeah.
Did you look that up on Reddit?
I did not.
All right, let's wrap it up and then talk about this movie on the other
real
end.
quickly. I think there's two separate arguments. I'm happy to disagree about whether or not he's a replicant or human. I just feel like, how do y'all feel? Do you think Ridley Scott should have intervened, and at the last minute when we've had this whole intentional ambiguity the whole time, do you feel it was wrecked at him making a definitive statement at the very end?
I do, because it's his project. It's his baby.
Well, it's not his baby. It's the author of the original story.
No, it isn't.
That's been adopted by him.
It's an adaptation. They don't have to.
I know.
They don't have to stick to every word of an author.
Very different to the point of it them being, two different stories.
Okay.
And so,
well, then I have a question. Is the point of the book to make it an ambiguous situation?
Yes.
Yeah. I looked this up a little bit ago, and they said that the book was more ambiguous.
Because if that's kind of supposed to be at its core,
I want to hear what AJ says.
Were they more specific, AJ?
Hang on. Yeah.
I would say that it was 99% definitive that Deckard is a human in the book.
What's that 1% say?
I don't know, because Philip K. Dick's writing style it's a very sci-fi. I've only read The Man in the High Castle. I haven't read Scanner Darkly or some of his other things. But there's a certain stream of consciousness about it where some of it kind of goes off. And he originally started with short stories and then kind of went into novels. So his writing style is not traditional, I guess you could say. The thing is, I don't know that... I feel like the beauty of this movie is the ambiguity, the discussion-provoking aspect of it, and, having the discussion, is he human, is he replicant, what's it mean to be, is there a difference, all this stuff. I feel like, to a point, yes, it's the director's baby, it's Ridley Scott's baby, but actually this movie and me researching this movie only made me realize more how much of a work of a group coming together to make things possible is more than just the director himself.
Right.
And I would disagree that it is Ridley Scott's, directive to make that decision when obviously this is a contentious issue on set because the whole production crew was, there's a rift between them. So the people that go into the screenwriting and the storyboarding have differing opinions than Ridley Scott, and they are, I would say, just as entitled to their opinion on what happens in the movie. Of course, the director makes the end call, and that's fair. But I feel like the beauty of this movie would have been the discussion and thought-provoking nature of it with it could go either way kind of thing versus, let's just put this period at the end that kind of ruins the whole time you watch this movie.
The thing, though, I think it does still have that, though. It does tip the scales more towards, him being replicant, but there's still just enough. It's like that moment in Inception, which I won't spoil what happens in that movie, but at the end where you see the top spinning and it just starts to kind of tilt, where it's just, is this a dream or isn't this a dream? And then it kind of takes a slight stand, but you can still kind of,
I would say that top scene was better pulled off than making a definitive statement here.
See, I think the thing about going back and changing it is that it's basically conversation suicide, because now that there's an exact answer, nobody can really have that conversation because
we're having a conversation.
Yeah, we are, but the thing is,
it's kind
of like the God argument where people are just wanting to have a philosophical debate, but then someone comes in and said, well, God just made it that way.
So was it
And
GIF
so
or
then,
GIF?
then everyone's just like, well, that's the trump card there, or whatever
Yeah.
situation fits for you.
Yeah, the concept of the death of the author, and this gets brought up a
Yeah.
lot with, kind of J.K. Rowling's tweets and stuff, and I was joking about that earlier a little bit, but I think it's a fair conversation is if there's a work of art that gets put out there for the public, consumption, is the producer of that art more entitled to the meaning of it than the consumer of the art?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic for sure.
Anyway, we should probably close the book on this story because this is our longest episode so far, and we need to get to the next
Blade
section of it.
Runner's so good, though.
I know.
I love this movie.
Anyway, let's take a quick break and get back to... and when we come back, we will be talking about our reviews of the film with numbered
Concisely.
scores. And yeah,
That means you, AJ.
the franchise status of Blade Runner. So,
Right.
see you then. Welcome back. We're here
Hi.
to talk about what we thought about Blade Runner, which we clearly have already said
So
Yeah.
let's
many of our pieces. So we will be keeping our reviews brief, and the franchise talk will be a little longer, but we're going to get through the reviews pretty quickly. David, I understand that you have all of our scores on little pieces of paper.
Numbers drifting around in a little box.
they're drifting around.
They're drifting. They're moving around.
Why don't you pull one of those bad boys?
I'm not going to start with mine.
Start with David.
You got
Is that
it.
what
You
you
got
dragged?
it.
You
No,
have
you got
to.
it. That's fair.
It's against
All
the
right,
rules.
So I gave it an 8. So,
You disgust
but
me.
as I
I'm
was listening
open-minded,
and the more I
please
was
tell me.
watching it as we were going, I'm bumping it up for the first time ever. I've never changed the score till now. I'm
Okay.
bumping it up to an 8.5.
So what you're saying?
We've
is
already
this
gone
is-
over this.
So what you're saying?
We've done this already.
No, no, we didn't.
Wait,
We did it already.
no. What you're saying is you rated this
An 8.5.
an 8, which is you initially saw this film and thought this is 1 point better than Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
You're all blind because Tomb of the Dragon Emperor is a masterpiece, okay?
well, then why didn't it get a 10?
Now you're just belligerent.
We are truly living in a
If you
post.
can't believe in Yetis playing football, then I don't know what you can believe in, okay?
It's like you go from this
True
movie, you
statement.
see Yetis,
So,
football.
So let's let him.
I was thinking
I'm
an 8,
open-minded.
and the more I thought about it and the more I watched it, the more it became evident that this is more of a game changer for its time. And it made leaps and bounds above any other 80s movie that I've seen, really, as far as how much work they put in. Maybe I shouldn't make that statement. There's a
Star
lot of
Wars.
big
There's some
80s
good ones,
movies,
yeah.
actually. But anyway, it was just a good movie.
It was one of them.
I gave it an 8 because it was a great movie, and I don't normally like these kind of cyberpunk movies,
Right.
but I was still invigorated watching it with no audio, so hearing all these points and the contention between it, you can keep talking about it, and I see elements in movies nowadays, so it made a impact. So that for me is enough to bump it up.
I do have a question. What did you rate Ghost in the Shell? Actually, out of
Yeah,
curiosity.
7.
7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a 7. This is an 8.5.
All right. That
Cool.
sounds, that
All right.
sounds about
Next one.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Next one.
I was waiting. I was like, who's gonna go?
David's just looking at his toes or something.
Somebody gave it a 10. I don't know who.
Oh,
But
that's me.
Noah, write your name down.
Yeah, this is the one time I
10.
forgot. I gave it a 10.
Awesome.
Oh, that's right. Noah hasn't seen 2049 yet.
Okay.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
why is it
Well,
a
I am
10?
ready.
Do you have anything to say, or is
I
that
just-
all you want to say?
It's a masterpiece to me. I love this movie.
Bow.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was a little late on
It's
that.
it's one of the rare 10s.
It's the master and commander of its time.
Yeah. So to me, these kinds of movies are they're just those kinds of movies that transcend most other movies. Not quite as much as Lord of the Rings does, but that to its genre, it is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So I
Gold,
have to
the gold standard.
I have to. Yeah, it's the gold standard. It's what you strive for. There's so much thought they put into it, and all the details they're there.
Yeah.
4 words, huh? Reese with a 10.
Hey.
Yeah.
Trying to kick our top movie off the list.
No. Honestly,
Yeah, that's our only
I think this
goal.
is Reese's top movie so far.
I went
Yes.
into this movie thinking, or the rewatch, because it had been a couple of years since I had seen it, that, oh, this is a 9. Like, probably going to give this a 9. Like,
Yeah.
because it's iconic. It's a milestone for cinema, as we've said. But the rewatch was the first time that it got me on a more emotional level, where I did feel for Roy before, but this time I was like,
Dang,
that speech at the end just
Oh,
really
yeah.
like seals the deal. And that combined with the aesthetic and the fact that this movie is almost 40 years old and it looks and sounds so good, and just it's top form all the way through. And
Yeah.
despite our disagreements on the messaging at the end of the movie, I'm not upset by it coming on a more definitive note, because I think that opens up another bag of worms that you can still talk about. But I understand some of y'all bristling at that.
Well, 40 years later, we're still talking about it.
So,
Yeah.
Reese, I'm glad that you gave it a 10 as well, because before we started doing this podcast, I just could never rate anything a 10 because it was never as good as Lord of the Rings.
Oh, your
And-
comedy score for Tropic Thunder
Yeah.
was a 10.
No,
No,
I give that a
was-
9.5.
Yeah.
No, but
and
your
you
comedy
gave Master
score.
Oh,
Commander
yeah.
10.
I'm just,
Yeah. Master and Commander 10. Yeah. But I've refrained from comparing things to Lord of the Rings because there's nothing that's ever going to be there. Therefore, it's above a 10 for me because it just hits that emotional high every time.
it's this 10 if the world didn't have Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
Is
That's
what
the
you're
thing,
saying.
because in its own right, it is a masterpiece, but Lord of the Rings is 3 masterpieces. So,
And anyone listening, just get used to us applauding Lord of the Rings. I know there's a few of you weirdos out there that don't like Lord of the Rings, but we're...
Oh, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Love an
they can
Oscar.
get out of this podcast.
Oh, I
That's
find
like orcs and stuff.
it's boring.
Who wants to watch walking
We like it,
for
okay?
9 hours?
Why do they just say,
Beautiful.
get the Eagles to take them?
111th birthday.
Anyway,
No one lives that long.
they do. But anyway, continue.
All right. Maybe we should go into the next score.
Yeah.
Well,
Reese
that's
gave
what
it a
we
10. Noah gave it a 10. I gave it 8.5. Who do we have next? AJ with a 9.
Nice. Still good.
So
I was expecting, like, after what you said, I was expecting, like, there might be an
gonna
upset
be?
here.
actually,
He was
yeah,
debating.
in my gut, I was actually feeling 8.5. And honestly, I feel like if I could split the difference, I would. I went up to 9 because I knew I'd probably get raked over the coals for giving such an
you would
abysmal
not.
story. Yeah, now that I saw
I'm here
that
for you,
David
AJ.
had the guts to do it, I wish I had followed suit. But
Well, you can still lower it if you want, unless you feel in your heart that it deserves a 9.
so I'm okay with it. I just felt like it would be too much heresy if I didn't call Blade Runner a complete masterpiece. And I feel like in a lot of ways it is a masterpiece. And like you mentioned, part of the reason that I went up on it was because of its age and what was accomplished for its time. Now, granted, a lot of the visuals were significantly updated in 2007 for the final cut.
Yeah.
But that's also where I kind of give it less leeway because of
It
George.
was a color grading mostly, I heard.
Well,
is what it
I
was.
saw some side by side, and I did see the theatrical as well. It's a lot of the textures as well, like especially the end scene, like the building, the bricks and stuff, and a lot of it's just kind of smooth and bare before.
Yeah.
But it does make a difference, and it's absolutely a beautiful movie. But I feel like if George Lucas can get flack for Han shot first, with all the re-edits and stuff like that, then I feel like Ridley Scott is absolutely open or fair game for the multiple edits. Be it some of it, I'm granted, is probably outside of his power with the studio interference and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
the other reason that I didn't give it a perfect 10, well, let me talk positive. The perfect 10 aspect of it absolutely comes from the production side of things. His Sid Mead's designs and the art, the lighting, I talked about it a little bit, and I just love analyzing every scene with the lighting and just looking at the shadows and the light and the parts of the shot and the camera work with the close-ups that they had to do, and especially granted, given with what they had to work with. This is definitely a movie that it's very rewarding to see the behind the scenes and the making of and that kind of thing, and all the context behind it. And that made me appreciate it more, and also appreciate, like I mentioned, that it's the work of multiple people, not just one single head person. coming together to make one work of art. But some of the middle pieces, and I know we talked about the ambiguity, I feel like what really kind of threw me for a loop at the end and why I was upset by it was because some of the ambiguity, I felt like they leaned in too hard at the sacrifice of character development. Now, some of this is speaking from having read the book, and I feel like I can separate myself from the book and this movie well enough because they do diverge in plot fairly significantly. They do a good job of complementing each other, but especially towards the end, just I felt like my immersion was ruined because some of the Bizarro Land aspects of it just didn't really click with me, like the whole weirdo toys that Sebastian made and lived with, and then just some of the, like Pris, her kind of costume design just kind of threw off the whole. I thought these people were supposed to be like blending in, and you couldn't tell who was human and who was android or replicant based on their looks, and then it looks like someone was just straight out of a bad 80s hairband or glam rock or something like that. And and then the whole chase, the whole chase through the abandoned building, it didn't click with me. And I feel like Roy redeemed himself in the end with that beautiful "The Tears in the Rain" speech, but I felt like that was disjointed from what I just watched with the whole. Some of it just felt Bizarro Land, and that didn't really click with me, and it felt like the tone of the first half of the movie, or what I was expecting. So
it was definitely different.
Yeah. So, definitely a seminal piece and definitely a benchmark for other pieces to build off of it in the future, and that's why I'm okay with it being a 9.
All right.
Sounds good. Who's next?
Last score, Reno, with a 10.
Oh.
So it sounds like the Pains all agree.
Yeah, Pain synergy.
Why maybe
3 10s.
So I haven't read the book, but I do want to, and I know enough about it to know that this is different from the book, and I think when it comes to movies being about books, I am okay with someone deviating from the story if it's made in a unique enough perspective and with their own narrative or moral lesson or whatever it is. So with this, I think there was a lot of care and detail put into it, and I can definitely see Ridley Scott's stamp, and I think for me it's one of his better films, and honestly I would be very proud if I were a director and this was what I created. So I find very little flawed with it for me, and I love that every time I watch it I feel like I pick up on something new. And when you see it, there isn't a whole lot of hand-holding the viewer. You kind of are left to just enjoy the film.
Yeah.
You can pick up on things as you go if you want to, but you're also intrigued enough that you want to learn what things meant.
Yeah. And
because if there are movies I've seen where they try to complicate things, but I don't care enough to actually look into what it meant.
Yeah. It's a good point, too, because... last comparison I'm going to make to Ghost in the Shell. Even though I like Ghost in the Shell more than everyone else did here, and we all like that movie.
Yeah.
That movie is like the toddler version of Blade Runner, where
Yeah,
it's like,
I
hey,
agree.
you get it? The ghost is the soul, and the shell is the body. We
very
say
literal.
it like 3 times. It's handholdy, like you said. Where
I feel it in my ghost.
Well, they don't
Yeah.
they don't immerse you in the same kind of world, and they kind of have to walk you, handhold you, like you said, all the way through it,
Yeah.
instead of just letting you figure it out.
Yeah, this movie trusts its audience more. Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. So I like this film as it's definitely a mood film, but also has complexity in it. So for me, it's a 10.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, AJ, I don't know if you're ready for this, but did you want to crunch the numbers for us?
Yep. So we have a title average of 9.5, which lands it squarely tied with Master and Commander Far Side of the World for our number 1 spot.
But it actually got up to 9.5. I thought it'd be slightly under Master and Commander.
Well, there are 3 10s.
I know, but there's an 8. The 8.5 is the curveball here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks,
I
David.
am happy
Whoops.
that this is on that level. I'm happy that they're tied.
I'm
that makes
honestly
me
fine with that.
That makes
yeah.
me
I think it might be slightly under. I need to do the math again. Or
I don't trust AJ.
I do trust AJ. I just feel like I thought Master and Commander had like 2 9s and a 9.5 and 2 10s or something like that.
Nope. So Master and Commander, we had a 9, 3 9.5s, and a 10.
Oh, okay. Never mind. You're right. I'm stupid.
Unless you'd like to change your score.
Yeah, I was the only 10 on
Reese
the...
changes his score down a half
He
point.
wants to pull
10.5.
He wants to pull a Ridley Scott and go back and change
I want to
the
watch
narrative.
Master
There we
and
go.
Commander again, actually.
No, I can certainly add some significant figures if you want.
I just enhanced David's score, and it's actually 9.5.
Enhanced.
Wait, what?
Okay, so awesome. Tied.
All right.
Sweet. I'll take
I'm
it.
okay with
I'll
that.
allow it. I give my consent.
I think that I'm proud of those
I'm not
top,
going to fall into that joke
those
again.
being the top
I'm-
films that are on our
I'm
list.
afraid of that one day where we go through the scores and we find that something ended up being lower than another thing that we're like,
It's
no.
going
I've
to
already done
happen.
Wait.
It's going to happen.
What is gonna happen next week?
So what happened with me is I rated Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I think 0.5 too low.
That's and also AJ, that's one, and you raked me over the coals, not like too much, but when we were talking about 28 weeks later, you brought up like, so why is this 0.5 less than just 0.5 less than Dragon Tattoo?
Yeah, and as I was saying that, I immediately regretted it because I didn't mean to be that
You're fine,
aggressive.
you're
No,
fine.
it wasn't negative. It actually got me to think like,
Wait a minute.
yeah, why is this just 0.5 less than Dragon Tattoo? And I realized that it wasn't because I scored weeks later too high. It was because I scored Girl Dragon Tattoo too low.
Yeah,
If
that's
in
what I was
retrospect, I would go back and bump Dragon Tattoo up to a 9. Just as we've kind of settled into our scoring system, it's
Yeah.
it's just
Only
That's
1 point
the
higher.
same for me.
What
I think
I've-
once you revisit these films, you start to look at them a little differently, more
Yeah.
critically,
Yeah.
and they change.
What I've done
Yeah.
personally to
So-
combat that, because I do have several titles that I feel some remorse on how I graded them,
Oh yeah.
and especially comparing and just trying to be even keeled and give every movie a fair shot.
Yeah.
So I've personally created a rubric that I go by with different categories, and so I create each category, and then I create an aggregate score based on that to try to keep it as I would do still have an emotional element in there, but I
Yeah.
do try
Yeah,
to give
definitely.
things a fair shot. Where if I give
where is that
one movie
rubric
credit,
at?
then I'll give another movie the same amount of credit for doing the same thing.
I like it.
It makes sense.
Interesting. That's,
So are we going to
that's cool.
hit up that box office?
Yeah, first let's talk
Or-
about what critics thought about this movie.
Sure.
This movie was not super well received when it first came out.
What?
It had mixed reviews way back when.
Mm-hmm.
But as we all know, it has
Cult
the
classic.
criticism on this movie was leveled at it not having enough action.
A lot of it was the voiceover as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
This movie was immediately upon like physical release studied, and it gained a huge cult following. It's studied in colleges and high schools. And critics have retroactively given it its just what it deserves.
Yeah.
Higher scores. So
Well, it's
on
because-
Part of it,
on Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 92% with a audience
Nice.
score of 91. Metacritic, which is a little anything over an 80 is technically critical acclaim. This movie has an 84 with an audience score of 8.7, and on IMDb it has an 8.1, which if you know IMDb, 8.1 is actually a very high score on IMDb as well, and that's just an audience-based score. It sounds lower, it's not. So yeah, were one of y'all going to say something?
yeah,
I
I was
have
just
no idea what I was going to say. I completely forgot.
Well, I was
Let's
just
move on.
saying a little bit of add-on, like how this is kind of a benchmark film is I also gave it credit for that a little bit, even though some of the parts that I didn't really enjoy or wasn't entertained by. It's the status of the movie where, I mean, you can go back and watch and study like Citizen Kane, for
Yeah.
example. I'm not necessarily entertained or, even kept awake by Citizen Kane, but you can definitely appreciate the masterpiece that it is for, the production of it. Or
Yes.
like
Right.
looking at a Rothko in an art gallery, like it's a rectangle, great. But
Right.
Yeah.
you can still kind of appreciate the beauty of it, what went behind it, and even if you weren't necessarily entertained every second of it.
Yes. All right, so let's get into some box office. This movie in 1982 cost a reported $30 million,
Wow.
which basically triple that ish, and that's today's dollars.
So, Lord of the Rings budget.
Yeah, something around there. Like I'd say give or take around a Lord of the Rings budget. Big budget. It's big but not huge.
Mm-hmm.
How much do y'all think this made back in 1982? Remember inflation?
Yeah. Okay, so should I... right. I think it made...
And this is worldwide.
80
Yeah.
million.
I'm going to say 100 million. I hate you, David.
And that's take too long.
Is that with or without inflation?
That is as is.
Yeah.
It
That
made
is-
in its
it made
current time
100
period.
At that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, 80.
80.
Irina, any guess? Money.
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 AJ, did you want to guess or do you know? Or
I would say if it wasn't a success in the box office, then probably like 50.
50? AJ, you're close. You're the closest.
Dang it.
41 million worldwide
Wow.
off of a 30 million budget.
I had hope for the human race. A little bit of it was just lost.
A little too much hope.
I guess so.
Adjusted for inflation, that translates to 111 million.
Hey, I'm right.
Yeah, nice.
That's
nice
what
try.
I was saying.
Yeah. With inflation. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all heard you. So the opening actually wasn't considered all that bad. It opened to 6.1 million, but it had some tough competition in the following weekends of its release. The Thing came out, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Conan the Barbarian, and especially E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Okay, that's hard to
so
combat.
it
Gosh, but it's...
decent opening, just people had other interests the
That's
following
sad.
weekends.
Okay, so I know those are hallmarks, but this movie's better.
I
and I
think
would
you
agree.
may... Have you seen The Thing?
The Thing's great.
Yeah,
The Thing
it's really
is
good.
kind of another revolutionary kind of movie.
I think it's probably mostly.
And for
that
Trekkie's
this
Wrath of
is-
Khan is huge. E.T. obviously is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the pacing of this movie, as we've said, it is. I don't want to say it's not like it's like kind of leisurely.
It's a little slow. Yeah.
And
Hypnotic.
people want something punchy
well,
when they go to
especially
the theater.
since they're used to Harrison Ford
Yeah,
being
Harrison
in a Star
Ford.
Wars
It's like,
role.
oh, Harrison Ford.
It didn't fit the 80s
I just would have thought
narrative.
that
Yeah.
Harrison Ford would have brought that star power at the
Yeah.
time.
Well, he did, but
think-
it's just that he's not in a role that they were hoping for.
You would also
Right.
benefit
Yeah.
from seeing the theatrical release because it is different enough to see it and kind of understand what the audience was seeing at the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
considering
fair.
this
It
Final
is
Cut came
different
out
from
in
what I
2007,
saw a little bit.
Yep.
so
Yeah.
and they didn't have
Yeah, so-
Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos and stuff that makes it so beautiful today. Back
Mm-hmm.
then.
At least they don't have CGI aliens.
Anyway, we that's true. Gosh, those are terrible.
Okay, the one thing I would have preferred to watch over this one, most people disagree, but I would have rather seen Mac and Me.
Oh man.
True.
That's
the real
too bad.
that's the real ET movie.
Mac and Me, yeah.
Jennifer
There's something
Aniston
about
was
that
awesome
movie.
in that movie.
Yeah, and there's a split second in that dancing scene.
I love McDonald's.
Anyway, this movie it's not all bad news because there is a sequel called Blade Runner 2049, and
ready.
thanks to this film's cult status and how it is now looked back on as a classic, and how people realize that they did this one a little dirty, and everyone has since come around to it and appreciated it and bought bajillions of VHSs, DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks,
etc.
yeah, Blade Runner can now be looked back on as a success story.
Isn't that
Just like
kinda,
Napoleon Dynamite.
and also a little similar to Fight Club. I know that wasn't super well received at the time, but
How
then
did you like that movie?
I hate you, but I haven't seen it.
Sorry, I just like that
Yeah,
you referenced.
I've been meaning to see it, but it's the first one that came to mind because I remembered when it came out, it
Yeah.
wasn't as well received as people viewing it now and recalling it.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we decided we don't really want to talk about Blade Runner 2049 on this podcast, so we're just going to skip it and talk about Soldier. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it right now.
I'll see you for the
How about
next one.
Blades of
No,
Glory? That's the same universe, right?
Blades of Glory, yeah.
We have 3 10s in this movie, and
Wait.
I'm so interested in knowing what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, okay,
Wait.
so next week we are talking about Blade Runner 2049. We're going to follow this one up with its direct sequel. That said, we're going to take a little breather the week after that and talk about Paul W.S. Anderson's Soldier, which takes place technically in the same universe. It's a early mid-90s film starring Kurt Russell, weirdly in the same universe. There's also actually Alien, some people say is technically in the same universe as well, because there's one, I don't know if it's the Tyrell Corporation is seen somewhere in the Alien movie, or if Wayland Corporation is seen somewhere in Blade Runner, vice versa. I don't know.
I feel like that's probably just Ridley Scott doing his little
Easter
trademark,
eggs.
like
yeah. That's it. We're not talking about Aliens, so sorry to get y'all's hopes up. Unless that's what David chooses.
I am up next to choose.
Yeah.
I have not decided.
No.
Is Alien done though?
Alien is a dormant franchise after Covenant and the Disney acquisition. So it is...
What? We take dormant franchises, obviously.
Yeah, so Alien... I don't think Alien's going to see the light of the day for a while. It's not dead, but I still would like to talk about it while it's still eligible for this podcast. Huh? Cocoon. So yeah, Blade Runner 2049 next week. And after that, Soldier.
All right.
So exciting.
I'm ready.
Anyway, you can find our podcast pretty much everywhere you listen to your podcasts. So just type in Franchise Killer and give us a follow, subscribe, like, whatever. Stay tuned for next week. Blade Runner 2049. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
I'd like to check your dressing room, if I may, for holes.